Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, my friends and I are going to discuss the third book in the Wheel of Time, The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan. As always, if you haven't seen any of our Drink and Discuss videos before, we will be going into spoilers. These videos tend to be pretty long so that we can discuss a lot of the different aspects of the book and kind of give everyone uh, more than just my own perspective. I think that if you have seen the past two, um, I think that this one will start to be the point where we have more disagreements about what we like and what we don't like in the book. And I find that very helpful. Um, I think that it's really important to show everyone that we all come to read these, stories that we really enjoy with different perspectives, and sometimes that means that we enjoy it either in different ways, or we enjoy a story that others don't, or others don't enjoy stories that we do. And that doesn't make any book good or bad. In certain ways, there can still be stories that you don't enjoy that are that others don't, but are still well written. So I think it's really important to show everyone that, and for us to have a cool discussion um, while serving that purpose. So I hope you all enjoy our next drink and discuss.
Hey, what's up, guys? We're back here with the Writing Gent channel. That's Gavin above me. He's your host, and the rest of us are the Reading D-Gents. We're here to talk about this turd in a fucking dress, The Dragon Reborn.
Just steal the intro from Gavin. It's his
Is that how you're
fucking
supposed to do it?
channel.
Is that what you do? Is that good?
I mean, it's close
Like,
enough.
comment, and subscribe.
Make sure you sub!
Nerds.
I usually
Have
say-
you heard of Raid Shadow Legends?
I usually
Brought to
save
you
that
by
for the.
NordVPN.
Oh my. First
Sorry.
off, we don't have any sponsors. Second off, we're not good enough to have sponsors. Second off, usually I save the like, subscribe stuff to the end because I know people are sick and tired of hearing it from literally every YouTube channel.
God, now the way.
But
You're welcome.
today we are here to talk about The Dragon Reborn, which is the third book in the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. So you did pretty close, Marcus, but
I said turd in a dress, so I thought I addressed it pretty well.
So, well, that's your opinion. We've got Riker back, Marcus, and Logan, and we're going to keep going through the series. So, let's start off as we always start off with the biggest pro of the book, your favorite thing.
You're first.
And we're going to start with Logan this time, because Logan, you missed last one.
Oh boy.
Unless you don't have one, then I guess we're going to switch it up.
No, I just wasn't prepared for that question.
Wasn't ready for your trick question, sir.
I did like the expansion of how do I want to word this? We got to see more of what makes everybody unique. Like we just the character development, I guess, is what it boils down to. The characters felt a lot more. They're starting to get carved out a little more, I guess I'd say.
I can agree with that. All right, Marcus.
I feel like most people are going to say this, but Matt, basically, in this book, becoming a character and not being dead weight was fantastic. I actually really liked seeing perspective on Rand from other people and not just Rand's perspective, because I felt like there was a little bit more like, oh shit, is he going crazy? Is he insane? Like, it was just like gave it such a different kind of spooky perspective.
Riker?
Mine got taken.
See?
It was the obvious Matt one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say at first, I actually did not enjoy this book at all. But only because I was so like, we got it posited to us that Rand is the chosen one, right? So I wanted to see. I was like, oh, Rand's obviously the main character. Like, why isn't he the main focus of this book? But as we got into the book, and as Marcus said, we got to see different perspectives on Rand himself, and we did learn throughout the book that this isn't just his story. Once I accepted that and started getting more into it, I actually really did enjoy that side of things, and I'm excited for more stories that aren't exactly Rand focused.
Yep, that's definitely where I fall too. I think that I mean like I actually enjoyed this book a lot, and I think it's because it wasn't so heavily focused on Rand. I felt like part of the problem with characters in the last couple books has been that the perspectives we get are still basically just to set up Rand's story rather than to like set up their own tales, and we're getting to the point where like stories are diverging a little bit and characters are actually getting to be characters rather than just being like, "Oh, hey, Matt's there." Cool.
Oh my God, Rand is so hot.
That too. That too.
Every other character.
Well, I mean, like when we think about it too, like how many chapters were actually like Rands in this book? Like not
None of
very
them. Maybe
many.
one.
Very few.
There's
Yeah,
a few in
maybe
the beginning, and
one.
then like I think like one or two at the end, and that was pretty much it. Everything else was told from Perrin and Matt and the girls' perspectives.
Hmm.
Yeah, we just got perspectives of him every once in a while. There's never a chapter that was fully Rand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like 1 or 2 pages of his perspective, and then it cuts off.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, what's Rand up to? Oh, he's
So-
sitting under a tree and fucking dying.
And going fucking crazy.
and
Back
killing
to
things.
Gwen.
I do think that I like that a lot too. How they tie in the madness is like this. It's like he doesn't know if he's mad or not, right? Like it's this question that's always on his mind. It's like, am I crazy, or is like this just normal now?
Right, am I seeing shit or is this really like what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
I think they also kind of do that though for Robert Jordan kind of did that with like Perrin too, like with his dreams and stuff. He's kind of in a similar boat. Like the Egwene, like all the girls, they're the only ones that really understand at least to some extent what the dreams are. Everybody else is like, am I crazy? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And that's only because they get some teaching and tutoring and those elements, whereas like Rand and Perrin are kind of left to drift in the middle of nowhere with that kind of stuff. But we'll get into that a little bit. I want to get to biggest critiques of the books, and I'm going to start with Riker, and then we're going to do Logan, and we're going to end with Marcus, because I know, Marcus, you have some strong words for this. So, Riker?
Oh, critique of the book. I would say not necessarily a critique of the book, just more of the author in this book. I appreciate that we have sections, pretty large sections of the book dedicated to the female characters. I appreciate that, but unfortunately in this book, they are the driest parts and make it a real slog to get through.
You're being really kind right now.
I'm trying to be, because the latter half of the book, it does get better.
I was going to say,
Particularly
please
when they
be critical.
yes, when they get to Tyr, it does get better. But the first half of the book, I did stop this book for about a year. When I only continued reading it when I found out we were going to be doing these, because I was like, oh shit, I should probably finish that then.
And guess
and-
immediately, like what part you stopped reading at? Was it when they met the equivalent wisdom in Tyr?
It was before that.
Oh,
They
okay.
didn't. I
Never
didn't even.
mind.
I didn't even get to Tyr.
Yeah.
Oh,
None of the characters made it to Tyr when I stopped.
You were probably still in the tower when you stopped, I'm assuming.
Yes,
Yeah.
I absolutely was. They hadn't left.
Logan?
I didn't like how similar to the second book this one felt. Like it just felt like it was very convenient. Oh, everybody's going to the same place again. This is just what happened in the last book, like everybody happened to converge randomly in the same place. That was wheel weaves as the wheel wills and all that, but I'm hoping that does not continue to happen.
The Viren.
Just because it feels gimmicky.
I will confirm that this is the last time that happens. The characters' paths diverge significantly after this book.
That's kind of where I felt like it was going, but yeah, it didn't really like that. How it reminded me of like episode 4 of Star Wars going into like episode 7 of Star Wars to an extent. But there's a couple other random small things. This isn't really like a major critique, but Marcus and I talked about this. Like we don't like I don't get how those random like when the girls first meet the Aiel and the bandits just come out with slings and they're just like get them boys, and then like that somehow they perfectly hit all three of them. Like any one of the girls should have been able to just like obliterate those guys. Like it just seemed very convenient to me that all three of them presumably just get domed by some slings and knocked out.
No scope headshot.
Yes.
Call of Duty hit marker.
We'll get to that scene. I can definitely see that in that scene. That's definitely a
And the
There was
a
just
choice.
a lot of like
It's a choice
it
of
was just-
plot over what characters would actually. It's basically using them as like a plot device like you want to tell this part, but you have characters who technically shouldn't be, so you bend your rules of your world a little bit, and it feels a little disjointing.
it was a lot of just like taking like kind of suspending your disbelief to be like, okay, I guess I'll allow this to happen.
And then,
Robert
like-
Jordan really wanted to tell us about this specific thing.
Yeah.
So he made it happen.
Oh, also, I feel like the final fight could have been ramped up a little more. They made a big deal about the Black Aja being there. They made a big deal about the 13 Murdral coming in, and then you basically don't see them at all. You see like a couple of the Aes Sedai from the Black Aja, but then they don't really do anything much. Nothing super exciting anyway. Like I thought like Rand's sequence was cool, but like for the most part it was, I don't know. I felt like Robert Jordan could have done more with that specifically after it was built up to like, because it was like kind of felt like I forget if it was like part of the prophecy or how like the 13 Aes Sedai and like the 13 Murdral were like talked about, whatever that was supposed to mean.
Yeah, 13. So in the magic, a way to you can basically take control of a channeler by having, I think, 13 Aes Sedai and 13 Murdral convert them to the shadow, which means you could basically just like turn them from the light to the dark without them choosing that. So it's supposed to be like the setup, and it does. I will say that it does pay off later. So all these things that you're talking about right now, I promise you, they do end up paying off. And I think I think as he goes through, he learns. Because this is like his third book, and that's probably why I'm a little bit more forgiving of it than some of you guys are, because like books are really
what's
hard.
gonna happen.
Books, well, one, I know what's going to happen,
Well,
and I
yeah.
know how much better the series gets as he progresses through each book, and how Sanderson ends the series. But like, as someone who writes and as someone who's read a lot of books, usually first books, and Logan, you could say this about like Elantris too from Sanderson. Like that was his first publication. It's not great. It's pretty bad. Like there's definitely some good stuff in it, some lights that shine through, but it doesn't make the cut near the top of his books. Like as you progress and you write more and more and more, you kind of learn some of the mistakes. And I think Jordan does, and I think this book kind of shows with the character development that he is starting to learn the mistakes that he's made in previous books. All right, Marcus, tear it a new one.
I feel like I'm always tearing these books a new one. But I need to apologize because I feel like I've done a lot of research on these books, and it's a lot of people's favorite series of all time, and the people put it in the top of the top for fantasy series. So I'm judging it based on that as well.
And
obviously I'm reading it in 2021.
You have a perspective coming into it, yeah.
Yeah, more of. So Logan, for me, yeah, that hit the nail on the head with like it was a copy and paste of book 2 for me, where party splits, comes back together. And it was also kind of done in book 1 too, and I feel like that's just continuing to happen. The pacing of this book was so slow for me up until you get to Tyr, to the point where I remember messaging Logan because I passed him reading this book, and I said, "Hey, where are you at?" And he said, "I got 5 chapters left, and Matt just left Camelin." And I went, "Wait, oh right." yeah, we have 5 chapters, and if Matt just left Camelin, you have so much more shit to read, so much more that's about to happen. And like the whole arc, the whole book's about to explode. Dreams for me in this, and in general, I really hate dreams. This is more of a personal critique. I hate when authors use dreams to drive plot and drive knowledge for characters that they shouldn't have, or they're just trying to like give them like perspectives of like, oh, this is what the other characters are doing, instead of giving them a paragraph or like a few pages of what's going on with them with communication. But I think the other two, you guys kind of hit it on the head for me with the cons. The girls at the White Tower, dude, the girls could have been removed from this entire book. Like, as soon as they left White Tower, there was no reason for them to be in the book. And I'll talk about it later once we get into their story arc. But for me, it would have been way more interesting for them to stay in the White Tower and try to find the Black Aja in Tarvalin instead of just leaving randomly. So trying to stay nicer, but
No.
we'll get into it a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into it, and I can agree. This is definitely a problem with writing in general, and I feel like publishing is, and I think it's still a huge problem that I see in a lot of books now. Obviously, like like Marcus, you've obviously read a lot of like the greats that I would say of like, you've got Sanderson and stuff like that. Like pretty much everyone here has read some of that stuff. So like when you're comparing it to that, or even Game of Thrones, like think about how long Game of Thrones took to write. But that's because to make that quality, sometimes you have to just like, and it sucks, but sometimes you have to literally you had to spend a ton of time, and you had to write the entire novel and throw it in the fucking trash and rewrite it again and throw that in the trash and rewrite it again. And that's a process that not very many people can do, because it's very disheartening to do. But with that being said, we're here to talk about pros and cons about it. And I definitely think that while the character development in this book is good, I can understand.
It takes off. Yeah.
Yeah. Character development is amazing in this book. And he fixes what I would say is a huge portion of his writing with that alone. Like, that makes the book significantly more interesting for me. I get where you're coming from with the dreams, and it's definitely it's dream sequences can be really detrimental, and it's usually done very poorly. But Teliat Ronriad is really important going forward.
I have no idea what you just said.
That's the name of the dream world that Perrin and Egwene and Rand are all occupying when they're asleep.
Yeah. I did do a little bit more research into that, of like the dream stuff, and it seems like he did a lot more with dreams in the time that he's been writing, or this was written. It was in 1991, 92, but in 2021, it's just, for me, it's just dreams are it's just like we're foreshadowing stuff, we're predicting stuff, it's prophecy, or it's just information to get to like the bad guy without having the bad guy right in front of you, and having communications with them. And
I think that it suffers a little bit from that in this book, but it definitely is being set up for more things down the line, and it is addressed and fixed and made clear that there are, I mean, even in this book we have consequences for that world. Like, this is not just a world of dreams. You can die in this world of dreams too.
Right. Yeah, I did like that they built that up, but
it gets. I promise it does get better. But I can understand why this would be.
Drink. It gets better later, guys.
Yeah, that was.
It does though.
That was really my other complaint I didn't bring up, was just the pacing of the book, because it is just very slow for the first like half to
maybe even
like
75%.
quarters.
Yeah. For sure.
But like once everybody's on the road, it gets a little more interesting. I feel like the girls are still kind of dull, even like on the travel.
I
Matt
was about
and
to say, like,
Perrin's,
learning about the IEL, I agree with you.
yeah, Matt and Perrin's side is interesting. Yeah, the really the bright spot of the girls' part when they were traveling was the IEL, I thought. But
When they're
then
interacting with
then
anyone
all of a
else.
sudden, huh?
When they're interacting with anyone else other than themselves.
Yeah. But then yeah, like right at the end, like it just everything just ramps up immediately. Like the pacing was just really not the best.
Yeah, we were doing this. Then it's like the last 5 chapters.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah, that's
Robert Jordan novel.
Like, oh,
even
shit.
it's just like they basically, I mean, I guess the assault on the stone was like 2 chapters, but for the most part, it was basically 1 chapter, and I felt like it deserved a little more than that.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. I actually found the girls' training sequence interesting, so I'm interested to talk about that. There's parts of it I found interesting, I should say.
I did like the portal scene when they had to do their, like, I thought that was really interesting when Egwene had to go through her accepted trial.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That was significant. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Let's talk about the prologue. So, Marcus, I'm already going to correct you on this one. The Dark Friend is not the Lord Captain Commander.
Is he not?
No.
I did this after reading the book, and that's
It's
all
all
I could
good.
remember.
He is
Also, this is like a fucking book report where I'm doing all of the work and you two are not doing anything. Continue.
That's exactly right. You're doing such a good job of this.
That's true.
Thanks for the
I'm just-
A, nerd.
I'm just dragging you two motherfuckers.
No,
to the
I
end.
really appreciate it. Well, and I've read the book a long time ago, so you're doing this live.
That's fair. That's fair. I didn't expect much. Is he not? So he's not the Lord Captain
No,
Commander. I thought they said Lord Captain Commander like multiple times.
Padron Nile is the Lord Captain Commander, and they're the one. He's the one who's talking to these people. He's one of, I think he's like the High Questioner or High Inquisitor. Is that who he is?
You're gonna have to Google it. I can't Google
That's
it. I'm
that's
gonna
what
get interrupted.
That's
or
what
I'm gonna
that's
get
what I'm doing right
spoilers.
now. But the since I haven't read, it's much harder to be like, wow, I would never pronounce some of these names like they do in
No,
the
hell
audiobook.
no.
But yeah, so he's like part of the questioners. And they're like basically like the interrogators and torturers of the children of the light, you know, as the church does. But Pedro Nile is basically like is the one who is like telling him to hold off on killing Rand, and then the Murdrall comes in and is like, no, the Dark Lord wants these kids dead now. Like, go kill him, and if you don't kill him within the month, I'm going to kill one member of your family.
Right. I remember that. I guess I just remember everyone who came in to talk to him was like, my Lord Captain Commander. My Lord Captain Commander.
Yeah, he was one of the people that came in and talked to him. It was a weird perspective shift, and that's probably why you got confused. I actually think it's poorly done, because what happens is we're in Pedro Nile's perspective, and then it shifts to his perspective.
Oh, the guy who was saying my Lord Captain Commander is the... Oh,
correct. He's
yeah.
the Dark Friend.
I see. Okay, now that I'm actually having the physical book, I don't actually read the physical books. I listen to them. Those gaps in text do not come across in audio.
Yeah,
there's a small gap, but then they just keep reading.
It's really hard to pick up if you don't already know it's coming. And since I already know who is who, it makes it a lot easier for me to follow who's going on.
Way more sense. And okay.
But that should still tell you guys that the Dark Friends have significantly infiltrated the Children of the Light, which, are we surprised?
No. Which, I went in, as soon as I started reading the prologue, I immediately thought of the second video with my predictions that the White Cloaks are going to become way more into the story. And I started reading the prologue or listening to the prologue, and I was like, oh, there we go. Perfect. Didn't hear from them at all the rest of the book.
Yep. Welcome to the Wheel of Time. You'll hear briefly about something happening in the world, and then it'll jump, and you won't hear about them for a couple books, but it will come up.
And then it's like, oh, that was relevant?
Yep.
Right.
So
Which is also my problem with dreams. Oh,
Yeah.
that's relevant. 10 books from now.
I would say that
Okay.
like this being my third read through of the books, a lot of these scenes have become a lot, and I feel like I had a different opinion, which is interesting than a lot of you, because I actually like there's so many things that I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. I didn't catch this.
Right. Again, that's so far my biggest con of the whole series. It's like you need to read it, listen to it a second time to really appreciate everything.
Yeah.
If not the third time, yes.
Other opinions on the prologue?
To be honest,
liked it.
I really don't remember the prologue. I should have read that before we.
That's okay.
Very good. I think Pardon Faye.
Pot and Fane. Yeah.
Pardon
Pardon
Fane.
Fane. Sorry, I'm always gonna pronounce
It's
it that
okay.
way. For
It's
some reason.
fantasy. Fantasy
Yeah.
names are very difficult to pronounce, and Jordan did not make it any easier for anyone.
No.
No.
I think he showed up and talked to the guy who said the Lord Captain Commander a lot, and I was like, oh shit.
He talked to the Lord Captain Commander as well.
It's mostly just to show how much they've infiltrated the quote unquote good guys.
An organization that's supposed to stand against the Shadow.
Pretty much.
Okay. Jumping from that, let's talk about the camp. And at the very beginning of the book, we spend a lot of time in the camp. Rand is having trouble holding on to his powers sometimes. We're getting a lot of Rand being like, I need to go. I need to leave.
I need to leave. Why?
And then Moraine's like, no, you can't. And he's like,
Really?
I'm gonna do it.
I kind of took Rand's perspective on this of like,
Really?
yeah, where he was, because there was a specific part where he said that there's people out there who are fighting for me and they're dying for me. I should be out there to be doing stuff to help them or to show them that I'm not just sitting on my ass for the whole winter. Because it's been a whole winter, right?
Yeah, it has
From
been.
the second book to the third book.
Yeah, it's been like several months.
A whole
since-
season has come and gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw it from Rand's perspective more of where he's like, hey, we've been sitting on our asses for a whole winter not doing anything. We've just been sitting on this hill.
Yeah, I basically
And-
proclaimed myself and then went into hiding.
Yeah, and all these people are trying to follow me and become subordinate or soldiers for me, and they're just dying out there, and I'm hearing these reports of them dying or whatever. So I understood his perspective more than Moraine's, to be honest with you. And I actually liked seeing Rand stand up for himself against Moraine.
Yeah. I feel like that happens a lot more in this book, that the
Yeah.
characters get a chance to actually, and even like Perrin throughout the entire book is like, you can't keep demanding that we follow you without giving us the information that you clearly know
Yes.
and you're not giving us.
Which is why I don't like Moraine as much as I think you three. To be honest with you, I really don't. I don't know. I did. She's a walking contradiction.
I will say I agree with you in that she does know things, and they make it obvious that she knows things and knows the answers to all these questions, and is being deliberately obtuse about it.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I kind
And it's
of.
frustrating.
I feel like Moraine though is just like she's just so absorbed in all of her like plans and what's going on and like the potential of the Dark Lord coming back that she just doesn't think to tell people things. Like you even see it at the end when Matt's like trying to ask questions and she's like, well, okay, what do you want to ask? Like, I think she just doesn't think about what other people would like to know. I think she just expects them to be like, oh, this is important. And she's the one who knows everything. We need to just follow her.
I feel like I should like say that I know what you're saying, and I picked that up as well. So I think she's written very well. She's a very well written character. Personally, I would stab her in the neck. Because she is not giving any information and won't say that she doesn't know stuff when you're asking her deliberately questions. And she's like, well, what do you expect of me to know everything? Type of thing. Like, she's written very well. I think Robert Jordan did a fantastic job of writing her. But I think we're supposed to not specifically like her for that reason. Though.
Yeah, we're not fully supposed to trust her because of I mean, she's an Aes Sedai who clearly, and I don't want to spoil backstory and stuff for you, but there's like a reason that she's acts the way she does. And,
Right, very different from the other ones.
Yeah, and there's this clear of, why are you questioning my authority? I'm trying to save your lives, dude.
Right.
And-
I guess I would compare him to like Joffrey from from Game of Thrones. You fucking hate him, but he's so well written because you know why you hate him. That's what I guess I kind of am with Moraine.
I
Like,
agree.
I understand it. I hate her, but I understand like why she's written well.
Yeah,
basically.
And there's, I agree with Logan's point. I think she was telling Perrin that. Perrin asked her, like, well, you need to give me the information. And she's like, okay, what do you want to know? You expect me to share a lifetime of knowledge, or several lifetimes of knowledge with you over the course of a boat trip? Like, that's not going to happen.
Well,
I was referring to the very end, like at the very end after
Yeah.
the battle's over. The girls are talking to her, and Matt's just
Okay.
standing there, and he's like, "What are they talking about?" So like he like butts in, and they all like stare daggers at him, and then she's like, "Well, what would you like to know?" Basically.
yeah.
Yeah. Matt, poor Matt.
Maybe that's the other reason I hate that fucking girl so much in this book.
Yeah,
Matt
we'll
is
get
treated.
we'll get to that. We'll get to that point.
My poor boy.
Honestly, of the girls, I think Elaine's my favorite at the
same.
moment.
Big Sam.
Like Nynaeve makes me the most mad just because she's always mad all the time. Like you're around my age, like control your emotions. You're an adult. Like why are
No
you just getting so
shit.
Well-
pissy and like cutting people short so much? Like it annoys the hell out of me.
Well, part of it too is that she can't channel without being angry, which we'll get to. So,
Right.
Okay, let's talk about Perrin. I think we've said all we really care about the beginning. I don't feel like a whole lot happens there. It's basically just setting up the rest of the book.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess one thing I want to mention on for sure. Murdrals got hit with their Nerf bat hard, and that's it. Because Perrin was able to kill one very
Well-
quickly. In the first book, when they were running from one, like 5 of them were.
They
I
were
would
running.
Posit. Did they get nerfed, or did the main characters just improve?
That was
Yeah.
kind of
They
the
could've.
perspective I took, because I mean, think about how much time has passed. But again, it's that thing of like where I complained before, like when we were talking about it before, where it's like we don't really get to see the growth of the characters. We're just kind of supposed to accept it.
Yeah,
Right.
we don't get to see them train other than like the Rand training in the beginning of the last book. We don't get to see any of the others because, like, presumably they're not just sitting around camp all winter just chilling. They're probably Land is probably training Perrin and Rand more. And like, yeah, I mean, they were running from more than one Murdrall too. They like it started off as one in the Two Rivers, and then by the mid scene where they kind of get split up and they're running into Shadow Logoth, there's like several fists of Trolloc, which means there's multiple Murdrall following them, and that's why they're like, oh no.
That's true.
But
I mean, I'll give you that to you for sure. But it was a moment of pause for me where I was like, oh, he just single-handedly killed a Murdrall.
yeah,
Or Murdrall.
it's one thing. I agree with Logan. It's one thing that like we don't get the. I feel like a lot of like, and especially this is like true in like anime, right? Like we've seen this a lot through like where you get to see the training sequences and you get to see the powers improve, and like that has I think carried over as well into writing, like with Stormlight specifically. I'm thinking where like we get to see the growth of the characters in their magical and like physical training to where that pays off better because we're so used to that. But in this, it's like we skip time and we were supposed to assume that they've gotten just stronger overall. Okay, let's talk about Perrin stuff. And there's
Basically
a
how
lot that happens in Perrin's chapter.
There's a lot of Perrin stuff, which I didn't like at first, but then started to really enjoy once. What was her name again?
Fail
Fail got
Fail-E.
introduced.
or Zareen.
Or
Yeah.
Zareen, or the
Yes.
horse.
Perrin was up to typical Perrin shenanigans regarding his wolf self, and I was getting so fucking over it so fast.
Yeah, I think that it's good that we got the scene with the town folks brother was a wolf brother as well, that like went too far and like basically just lost himself completely.
Didn't even mention that in my prose. So that was probably one of my favorite parts of this book, is seeing if he went too far, what could happen to him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think it also sets up a lot of good character for Perrin, because we've gotten like he's a like quiet, thoughtful person that a lot of people take him for being dumb, because he's not very like quick to, he like likes to think things through, but like
he's very intelligent.
Yeah, but we also get this like kindness that I feel like Matt and Rand have that, like they all three have that kind of kindness, but Perrin I feel like is the most gentle of all of them. And I feel like that moment really solidifies that in his character, where he's like, okay, you just gotta let your brother go, man. I know it sucks, but like, would you rather him go out there and be at least happy with the life he can have, or be stuck in a cage so that you can feel better and sleep at night?
Right. Which
feels,
because he was like a wolf man.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what if he just turns around and attacks someone in the town?
I thought that too. I was like, you're just okay.
I'm like, I hope you're using your powers to talk to him and tell him to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
but...
tell him to stay. Like, don't hurt people, bruh.
Yeah, especially when he was like him specifically was like trying to attack everyone who approached the cage other than Perrin.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt we also got this perspective of Moraine, where, right, she doesn't know everything. She can't fix every problem. She's not really Gandalf, where she can do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
So
she's got limitations. She knows, like, we get a little bit more of like, it's her, like, she's like, I have a purpose, but my purpose is not to fix all the world's problems. My purpose is to prepare
to fix the big problem.
Yeah, it's to save the world from being lost to the dark.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is set up in there's a few lines throughout this book of like, oh, Blue's always stuck in with their causes and stuff like that, and like it's kind of like exemplified in Moraine, where she's just like, this is my cause, and anything that's not my cause I don't care about.
Right. But I feel like she doesn't, and again, this is what she's written so well, is that she doesn't try to accept the allies around her and like use them enough to like and let them know what's happening. She just like, I have to do this. I am the person who's writing this book report. My 3 other people who are in my group class, they just suck, and I missed to write it all. Basically.
I mean, I knew you were gonna take notes anyway, so.
But it's kind of like she's like playing a game of chess. She sees the board and she sees and has like an idea of what she wants to do.
Yeah, she's got
like
the big
in the
picture.
long term, but everybody else are kind of just the pieces on the board. Like they know their one like singular path for the most part.
Yeah, no one likes to feel like they're being controlled.
I got you.
So let's talk about Gaul, the Aiel that's trapped in a cage.
I like this part a lot.
Was that his name?
Yeah, his name's Gaul. Don't worry.
Okay.
He'll come back.
Especially going back to what you said, how you said that Perrin is almost the most kind of the 3. I feel like even though like he does like to think things through, I really appreciate having that goodness readily apparent. And how even though he's like, I probably shouldn't let this guy out given X and X reason, I don't quite remember all his thought process for it, but he ultimately does, and we do get to see some great fights and how he can almost keep up with this Ale. If he, like, internally, it seemed like he could keep up with this Ale fighting.
Aiel,
not Ale.
It's okay.
No,
Marcus and I have an advantage because we listen to it.
We listen. And they don't pronounce the names always the same. But
yeah.
Aiel.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like we get a ton of Aiel in this book, which is great. And like their perspective and their like Jordan, one of my favorite thing about the Wheel of Time and Jordan specifically is like he makes these he makes these cultures that have like these points, and at first they feel very not stereotypical, but like
one dimensional,
but they start to like flush out as the series goes along, and I really appreciate that because they're interesting and they're not tropes. It's not like the Aiel are like the Roman Empire or
I like their culture a lot.
Yeah, like there's like a bunch of
cool.
like things that like he sets up and like he builds the culture based on the world rather than having a planet of hats and just saying, okay, I'm going to take the Roman Empire culture that people have used a billion times and I'm going to set it in this part of the world without any context of why the culture existed. He takes it the other way around, which is the way you should be writing cultures.
All of them make sense as it goes on.
Yeah. Yeah, the Gaul situation, I promise you, keep that name in mind because it will come up later on, especially with I think it comes up in the next book with Perrin.
If Logan's not going to say anything about this sequence, the only thing I want to say for later is I was worried that this was a not Tarval. Is that what they're called?
Taviran.
Taviran. I thought this was like a very Tarviran situation because Perrin said, like in his monologue, I don't even know what I'm doing. Without thinking, I went and did this type of thing, and that's what was going through my head instead of his character, like him just being super nice. So I was worried about that in general, but I'll leave it for the end of the video of my discussion of that.
Yeah,
It's funny you say that because I felt the opposite. I just felt like that was him as a person.
Oh, okay.
Like I agree with it's kind of I agree that this is definitely his character, and like I feel like he would have done this because he saw how kind of abusive these town people were to him. And when you get like the full story of what actually happened, it's like they didn't start the fight. The other guys jumped them and then told them that there was 20 when there was 2 of them.
Did we get that before he did this though? I thought this was like we heard about this after he freed them though.
No, he gets a little bit from he talks to Gaul.
He frees them.
Yeah, he's talking to Gaul about it, and then he's like, "Oh," but I definitely feel like because it's set up with Min sets it up in the beginning of the book about the man in the cage, and a bunch of other stuff that sets up throughout the rest of this book. And then they get to kill more White Cloaks, which is fun.
That was so random.
I just loved like, yeah, that was kind of random that they showed up right there, but I love Lan just showing up afterwards and he's like, Perrin, you are an idiot.
But you did a great thing.
Like, you did a great thing, you moron.
What the fuck?
He's like, pack your bags, we're leaving.
He's
Idiot.
like,
it's like, guess we can't stay here anymore. Fuck.
And Moraine needed to think.
well, yeah, it was just like a one thing of like it was like, wait, what? No, now we have to ditch town. God damn it.
Yeah. It's like everything was going so well until you did a fucking good thing, you asshole.
This is also the town that Fail gets introduced, right?
Yeah.
Because she like follows them from here.
Yes.
Yeah, Perrin makes a big deal about like seeing her in the inn.
Yeah.
And then she jumps onto the boat with him when
and then she sees him free Gaul.
Right.
And she disappears and he's like, someone saw me, we gotta go, like, we just gotta go.
Oh yeah, that is her.
Yep.
I mean, if you saw that muffin cake, I'd fucking look at it.
Yeah,
too.
that beefcake walks into an inn. What are you doing?
With his yellow eyes.
With his yellow mysterious eyes.
Hey,
Didn't
at least
he
someone's...
make a note that she was the only one that looked him in the eye too?
Yes.
Yeah.
She was the only one. Yeah.
Yeah, she was the only one that was also watching him compared to the other 3, because you've got an Aes Sedai, a Warder, and
An Ogier.
And an Ogier, and
Who's
she's looking
9
right at
feet
him.
tall. Yeah.
Well, also the guys that like the hero dudes or whatever that were telling their fake story about the Aiel. Everybody was like the hunters. That's right.
So
Yeah.
Perrin just kind of blurred into the background as like a servant, and she was the one that
Except to
noticed him.
her,
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Why she's the GOAT female character so far.
I mean,
Let me highlight this part right here, right there. Fail equals GOAT girl so far. R. I don't know what the R is, but
R was Riker. Like, that's my comment.
oh, it was like hard R.
No, we're skipping over that.
Damn you.
I think Fail is probably. We can talk about her a little bit. I think she's probably one of the better written female characters from the get-go. It's like her and Moraine and Swan Sanche are like the best written from the get-go, and like Elaine and Nynaeve and Egwene are like slowly getting better. slowly,
on this one.
but
They somehow took a step back for me in this one.
Interesting. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I want to hold off on talking about the stuff that happens in like Tier and in
Right outside of Tier.
why can't I think of the day on the map? It's a place. Wheel of
Ilion.
Time. Ilion, yeah. I want to save that until we get a little bit into the tower chapters. So let's
with the Dark Hounds.
Yeah, with the Dark Hounds. That happens in Ilion. So let's talk about that in a little bit. Let's talk
That's
about Nynaeve and Egwene and Elaine at the beginning of the book.
Here we fucking go.
It just gave me big Harry Potter vibes, honestly.
Yes, but worse. But fucking worse.
I want to take the lead on this a little bit.
Do
So
it. Make it nice so we can shit all over your objective opinions.
okay, good. So I'm not going to talk about the healing with Matt because that's a Matt thing, not really a girl thing. I feel like the coolest part of their time in the tower was the Egwene's trial to become an accepted, and like the resonance with the ring, and setting up that the dream world a little bit for her, but also doing a lot of foreshadowing and stuff like that for down the line, and seeing like. I feel like giving Egwene just like a little taste of her actual character that we will eventually get throughout the series. But I really am like, I get the point of like, because Jordan wants to set it up to where they're not stuck just training all the time, right? So he basically uses them as like Swan being like, okay, clearly you're not Black Aja because they kidnapped you. So you're the only two that I know for sure are not Black Aja. So you're going to go hunt down the Black Aja even though you're only half trained. And I felt like that was it was like a good thought, but I feel like we could have used a little bit more training from them to make them feel like clearly Egwene is much more powerful now from her time with the Shan Chan. But like, I'm like, you're sending two accepted out. Contact Moraine. Like, tell Moraine that the Black Aja is out in the world and hunting down like Rand and stuff like that. Why are you sending? Like, you could maybe include them in the loop, but like you should like be like accelerating their training so that you know you have allies near you.
But Gavin, they can't contact through a long space of time. Oh, dreams. Right.
It's like, oh wait, they can.
Oh yeah, duh.
Well, not everyone is a dreamer. Not everyone can access
The dream world.
The dream world.
Right.
Like that's like Perrin and Rand and Egwene.
But Egwene can.
Yeah, but also like think about what happened
They
in
don't
it.
think
Like Egwene goes into the dream world at one point and tries to talk to Perrin, who like shuts her out, and then tries to talk to Rand, who almost kills her.
Oh, that she almost.
True.
He almost kills Perrin.
He almost kills.
He
both
almost
of
kills
them.
both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
He has
Because
conversations
he's-
with both of them where
because
he
he
thinks
thinks-
they're Balsamon.
Yeah, he thinks that they're
Right.
projections and that they're being used because like Balsamon was sending like visions of his mom, like trying to stab him, or his like dad
Right.
trying to kill him, and like he kept sending like people he loved trying to kill him.
And so he just assumed,
Yeah.
which I don't blame him. Exactly.
It was just set up very quickly of like, oh, you're trying to pretend to be my mom again. You're trying to pretend to be my dad again. I'm gonna fucking stab you, type of thing.
Well,
Or
I
I'm gonna
mean,
kill you.
it's partially because we like don't get any Rand's perspective through in
Right.
this book. I'm covering a lot of stuff in this little bit, but I feel like there's not
There's
a
a
whole
lot
lot
that
to
happens with them.
There's a lot that happens, but not a lot to talk about.
Yes, I agree.
So let's just talk about like the trial first. Egwene's trial to become accepted. Thoughts?
I put
opinions,
this in the
other
dream.
opinions.
I put this in the dream sequence for me of why I'm also very annoyed with the dream sequence, because a lot of it is it's not real what's happening to them. It's just either foreshadowing or what could have been type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I gotta read my own notes on this. So the first vision was Egwene and Rand were married and had a child. Okay.
Yep.
I don't think anything super special came from that. It was just whatever. But the
Something
second
goes
one,
wrong in it, and she.
Yeah, he starts to like lose control of his power,
Yeah, he
and
starts
he's
having
gonna
like a
Yeah, that's like with all of these, she needs to turn away from
Rand.
these specific things and Rand specifically,
Right.
and keep on the Aes Sedai path. Is
Yeah.
what I took this
oh,
all as.
right, okay. So for me, the biggest highlights of all three visions was that she's going to become the Amerlin seat. I think that's just foreshadowed at this point, because I think two of the visions, or one of the vision for sure, was her in the Amerlin seat.
The last one was her as the
The
Amerlin.
Amerlin,
Yes.
okay, as a green,
Yeah,
and her basically just trying to save Rand in all three of them, because Rand was trapped under like a beam or a log and had to try to save him or leave. And then like the third one was the same type of thing, right? Rand was trying to get gentled, and then she had the choice of
they had captured Rand and they were trying to gentle him, and then she realized that they were actually trying to turn him to the shadow. Because like the Black Aja had captured her too, and it like broke the vision down.
Yeah, that's where the 13 and 13 came from.
And like the black, like the vision, or like her time there is like you hear like voices, like this disconnect, and then there's like voices of like Swan being like, "You need to fucking keep going. We're not losing her because this thing's like falling apart."
Right.
Because like there's like the synchronization between like the arches and the ring that is like warping this reality.
Yeah, it made it almost more intense.
Yeah. But I really enjoyed the part at the end where Egwene's like, I couldn't save him in any of these, but fuck you. Like, this is bullshit.
Right, which I felt like we got from Nynaeve as well in the second book, of like, just in general, fuck you, fuck these visions, and the person who was there was always like, yep, that's what everyone says.
Yeah. Yeah, but
so,
like
I feel like it didn't impact me as much because of that specific note of like, that's what everyone says, by the way, I guess. So I didn't draw as much from it.
The thing that I think I like about this is kind of the same thing I liked about the Portal Stone scene from the last book with Rand, where he transfers them through like 1,000 worlds instantly.
Right.
Is where it's like, it shows them that like there's situations that they could find themselves in where what happens is not good, and they have to betray the people around. Like I feel like to me it solidifies this united front of the five from Emmons Field, of like this. No, we're not going to leave each other behind. Like, we're going to go our separate ways, but we each have our own part to play.
Yeah. Okay.
We didn't talk about the Gray Men either in the tower.
That's what I was gonna get to.
That's
next.
after.
Yeah.
That's after her.
I was actually
initiation.
gonna get to that next, of like, yeah, the Gray Man that's coming to kill them, and then he's dead. He's shot with a crossbow.
He was stabbed in the chest with a knife from a second.
Oh,
person.
right. He misses them with the crossbow.
Yeah, he shoots at them with the crossbow, misses. Convenient. And then gets stabbed because Nynaeve error locked him, whatever. And this is really where I stopped giving a fuck about them. Because they immediately did that, and I was super immediately like interested, like, oh, there's almost confirmation that there is still Black Aja in the White Tower. And that's their job. That's their whole responsibility right now, is to try to find the Black Aja. But they just had a dream about the Sword of Kalendor. So they need to go to Tyr instead.
Yeah, well, and they also find out that like the Black Aja that left the tower is heading to Tyr and all that jazz. But yeah, I think that I feel like we all would agree on this, that it would have been way more interesting for them to just stay at the tower and leave the Black Aja that left to their own things, and instead stay and try to like have it be like a mystery of who's actually part of this organization, and start rooting it out.
And we started to get a little bit of it.
Well, yeah, like they kind of make you suspect, like they kind of make you wonder if like Sheriam is possibly a dark friend. Like they kind of throw it on her a little bit.
Yeah, there were
like,
a couple questions that they asked that make you go, huh, That does seem kind of convenient. Then they leave it there
Yeah.
and then stay for another who knows how many chapters doing fucking nothing.
Yeah, well, they kind of like
Nothing.
starts going into the, well, what if Shiriam, or what if Varen? Who can we trust? We can't trust anyone anymore.
Which was cool.
Anyone could be Black Aja, and it's like really interesting because it's a huge issue. How the fuck are you gonna root
How
out
do we
this
determine
corruption?
this? And they say, fuck it, we're just gonna go to tier.
They're like, all right, this
You
shit's
might
too
as
confusing.
you might as well take a
we're gonna
drink.
leave.
You might as well take a drink now because
I know it comes back later.
it's
I already knew. I already know because I've heard Robert Jordan is just so good about that in the like for the future. But I just wanted them to explore it more.
I think I agree with you hard on this point. Is that this would have been like, it felt very much like a kind of like doing like a Harry Potter thing, or I feel like a lot of like books do this where it's we need to have all the main characters together at the end to fight the big bad in case this is the last book that's published. So it
Logan,
can
were you
conclude.
snorting coke on your desk? What was that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good. Make sure you're in the right mind space for this.
Logan, do you have anything to add about the Gray Man and the Black Aja stuff in the tower?
No, I think we kind of hit it. That
Hammered it home.
was before Egwene's trial, though, the Gray Man thing.
Oh, was
Was
it?
it really?
It was, yeah. This recap I'm looking at says chapter 15 they have the Gray Man situation. Chapter 22 is when Egwene goes through her trial.
Jesus, this book is so
Yeah, it's a little
slowly
weird.
paced.
I do have. I mean, I don't know if this
Holy.
is time for it. I do have a complaint about the girls in general, though.
Do it. We're
Yeah,
on the
just-
girls
We're
right
on
now.
the girls right now, so go ahead and talk.
Is it
Well-
about the men with the rocks and the sticks?
That is a complaint, but no, that's not that one. I don't know if you guys would agree, but I feel like everything about the girls and like their development of their powers and like becoming Aes Sedai, everything feels a bit like playing into like a Deus Ex Machina trope, where like stuff just kind of happens just because like Robert Jordan needs them to progress. Like for example, like think at the end of the book when they're in the cell and Egwene like goes into the dream world and she holds what's her name, Joya by ear or whatever. Like she even says herself, she's like how she didn't know, it was just kind of innate, like she just figured out how to
There's
weave and
also
stuff.
there's
And
also a moment where I think Nynaeve shoots balefire at the merge roll, and she's like, "How did I do that?" I can agree with that. I really think that would have been the perfect way to set it up in the tower, but he didn't. And
yeah, it
does.
just feels like they've been sent on this mission from the tower because he doesn't want to leave them there and maybe have this extended training montage type of thing, or he also just wants all the characters to be together. Like you said, maybe it's the last book that gets published, who knows? But also it feels like them, like the balefire, Egwene figuring out the weavings, all this stuff, like it feels like it just kind of conveniently happens, and it's like he's like, oh, I need to catch them up since they're not actually getting trained, like we need to get the powers in there, so like they're still developing too.
Yeah,
It just feels a little too convenient to me.
It's basically, to me, it feels like he could have, like, he starts in this book splitting up the plot lines a little bit in the middle, which is what he's been comfortable with the last couple books, and it feels like this is the book that he should have committed to diverging plot lines and had a conclusion for them built into the tower, and had the rest of them and maybe even have Matt come back to the tower too, to like, he finds out something about what's going on and has to come back to the tower to help them.
Yes.
But instead, like, Matt's journey also involves following them to tier because of them following Rand to tier because everyone's following Rand to tier.
Because of dreams.
I did want to say about the Gray Man too. I feel like Jordan does a pretty poor job of really explaining what the Gray Men are and taking the time to develop them in this book, because I actually, when they were doing that in that chapter, I was like, wait, the Gray Men are introduced in this book? I totally forgot. I thought they weren't introduced for like another 2 or 3 books.
Yeah, they're men without souls.
They're men without. They're the Shadows assassins. They're men without soul, or like people without souls, who like. So if you like try to look at them, your eyes just like slide over them because they're so normal that you just can't focus on them.
Innocuous almost. Like
Yeah.
they're just
I remember
so
that part. Yeah, yeah,
there,
yeah.
but yet
But-
you just blend in the background.
Yeah, they blend in so well that like they can literally come up to you and shove a knife in your throat, and you won't even notice until the knife is in your throat.
Yeah, they're 6
Yeah.
6 foot tall white men with maybe a beard.
No, they can well, yeah. they can be whatever though, but like your eyes just can't like focus. Like you cannot physically focus on them.
Right.
Which that you get again in that end sequence where
Yeah.
Perrin smells them, but even like Land and Moraine have no idea until like Perrin shouts and they're about to get like
Well,
killed.
There's also the one with Matt in the streets of Tarvalin where the guy comes out of nowhere and he like luckily rolls off the bridge on top of him,
Yeah.
which we'll get to.
Luckily. The only other thing about like that I completely agree with you, Logan. I thought that the girls were just used in this book for introduction for more world lore. And like, oh, they got introduced to the Aiel. This is what gray men are. This is balefire. This is how you use the one power. Like I feel like they're just the driving force right now of world expansion.
They're-
And like this is what the world lore is.
They're
And
a
that's
plot.
it.
They're a plot device, which is probably the part of the reason that they aren't good characters yet, because they're just used as a
Yeah.
way to explain other things that we want to know about the book.
Yes, 100. That's probably the most why I disliked them for the most part, and they got taken out by rocks on fucking strings.
I mean, we can talk. I think we already mentioned that pretty much, but yeah, that's kind of, and that's really the only reason that's there is to like set up the how strong the Aiel actually are, and like with their culture.
Yes, but I feel like they're just those girls are such a walking contradiction. Because I remember talking about to Logan about this of Nynaeve got called to heal one of the Aiel because they just ran into him on accident or whatever. And before that, we were told like you shouldn't heal anyone until you've been trained or seen healing 50 times, and then the next 100 times you need someone there to tell you what to do. Nynaeve just does it.
To be fair to that point, it is set up that she has already been doing that for a very long time,
Right.
with her herbs back in the Two Rivers. She just didn't know she was doing that.
Right. Which, yeah, Logan kind of told me about that later, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess that makes a little bit more sense. So this is more of like a to show how Nynaeve is so much more powerful and how she's supposed to be one of the most powerful Aes Sedai in the world and for generations.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, God, she is so powerful. Oh, here comes a fucking rock.
She's so powerful, but she can only channel when she's angry, which is also not
That's right. That
well
interaction
explored.
was so fucking terrible.
It's not well explored.
God damn it, you're not dying on me, you
Yeah.
Aiel son of a
Yeah, I do
bitch.
think. Yeah, that felt just kind of dumb to me too. But like, it makes sense. I think in the well, she also makes a big deal about how she needs her herbs, and then at the very end of the book, you don't like she doesn't give a shit about the herbs. Like she just heals up their like wounds when they get rescued from the cell and they get the access to the power again. Which that, granted, I will give them. Like it sounded like it was like just a lot of like bruising and stuff, not like really serious wounds per se. I will say the Aiel like woman
Was about to die.
It just felt like it was a mortal wound. Like she was going to die if she didn't get healed. And like it does seem like we just kind of have to like just kind of accept it and suspend disbelief for a bit for that.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that could have been like set up a little bit earlier of Nynaeve's healing powers being talked about earlier in the book, or even in previous books of her being able to heal with the power prior, because it is stated that she's been doing it for so long, and this is kind of like her calling. But yeah. Let's talk about. I want to talk about the Aiel a little bit.
Okay.
So what did you guys think?
About just Aiel in general,
Yeah.
I think they're awesome. They introduce them like we've heard about them, and we even met like one or two in this journey so far. I think one specifically in the second book that was looking for he who comes with the sun, and they're like, oh, wonder if
Mhm.
he means Rand.
The Kara Karn. It's
Yeah,
he who comes with the dawn.
he who comes with the dawn, not the sun. Um, but and so we've gotten just little injections of their culture and how their mannerisms go, but they've always been treated as kind of alien. This is the first time that we spent an almost extended period of time with them and get to learn more about them in a pretty, honestly, I know that their introduction's a little but a pretty natural way on how it's to how we as the reader get to learn about them and
Yeah.
how the girls' misconceptions about them are changed all at once.
I think this is one of the best ways that Robert Jordan shows which is one of his strengths with the cultures, and then with our preconceptions of people of other cultures and of prophecies and stuff like that from other worlds or like other peoples is actually all connected in a way.
I do also like how like we're kind of led to believe that they're just like these brutish people that like they only know how to fight and that's really all they're good for. Which obviously they're very good at that. But you know, we get a little more like characterization of them, and we get to see how, and they're talking about like all the different septs and things that they have back in the waist, and like another one of those strings where we're like, oh, I kind of wish I could like go down that path a little more and figure like learn some more about that, which I'm sure will get expanded on later. But yeah, it was really interesting. I really liked how when Nynaeve was healing the one Aiel, that like they were having just this conversation, and it was like a bunch of back and forth of like, wait, you do this, that's weird, and they're like, but you do that, that's really weird. Like it was just like it's exactly how it would be in real life if like two completely different cultures coming together, and you're just like, what, you say this is your word for this, or you do this, or like, yeah, I like that interaction.
Yeah, it's like in a lot of books we get to see from the main character's perspective, and so we take that as our perspective generally and our culture, and it's always seen as like the other's culture is always seen as this weird thing, but it's never, I feel like, shifted back on the characters of like, no, your culture is weird. Like, what do you mean you have these crazy rivers that run through your land? I don't like that. That's weird. Or you do X and Y and we do this. What do you mean
But
you
this is
can't?
what we call it. Yeah. Instead.
What do you mean you can't become first sisters? Just go to your wise women.
Right.
Okay, I think we've talked a lot about the Aiel. We've talked a lot about the girls. Let's talk about do you want
Gavin, have you heard about Raid Shadow Legends?
Oh my god, okay. Let's talk about Matt. Let's talk about Matt's arc and get into that. So Matt's healing from the dagger. What do you guys think? How do you guys feel about that?
Matt's healing from the dagger?
Yeah.
I'd still want. I'm curious to learn more as he progresses about all this old tongue stuff and him, like the Manetheren blood.
And then we've also go ahead. Sorry, do you have?
Oh, I was just gonna say I also like. I just kind of thought that sequence was a little funny in the sense of like I like imagine myself being there realistically, and he's just like laying on the bed and just starts shouting in some random language, like speaking tongues and stuff. It just was just a funny picture to me.
It was kind of strange.
I kind of liked it. I mean, we've also got like the downsides of that. You know, like he has holes in his memory now from the time when he was holding the dagger. And he's missing, like he has to eat all the time because he's like his body needs so much nutrition back from how much it was basically taken by.
Yeah, it was creepy. It just seemed like he actually had a parasite inside of him, and he needed to like rejuvenate basically, which I liked. I mean, it was very interesting.
That's basically what it was though. Like it basically like was killing his body.
I liked it. I liked the healing process.
So let's talk about his fight, because I think that's my favorite part of his arc in this entire book.
I'm gonna let Riker or Logan go first.
I really liked it, but also, I don't know. I felt like he handled them too well.
Thank you.
I will grant that it did seem like just like, oh, all of a sudden Matt's kind of a badass, but I just thought it was really cool that we have a bow staff user, which that seems so different and refreshing. Almost is probably a good way to put it.
Mhm.
I kind of overlooked that all of a sudden he's amazing at what it is, and I just enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah, I think that it's not really like a thing that's well set up. It's set up in the way that everything else is set up with like Rand with the Heron Mark sword and stuff like that. It's hinting at that this blood of Manetheren is strong and that the people of the Two Rivers are actually way more badass than everyone thinks they are. They're not just like these farmers. Like they still have this military training that they're just not that the people outside are just not aware of, and even they aren't fully aware of.
Yeah. I feel like I'd have to ask you, Gavin, if at any point in books 1 and 2 it was said that like Matt was super good with a stick.
So it's not said specifically. I think it's mentioned in book 1 actually a little bit, like very briefly, but it is mentioned that the boys in the Two Rivers learn how to hunt, and then they have like the quarterstaff fighting and stuff like that. So they are trained in bows and quarterstaffs within.
Yeah.
Wasn't Matt supposed to be like the best archer of the group too?
Yes.
See that?
Most experienced with a bow, anyway.
Yeah, he was good. He was really good at the bow and the staff, and like Rand is a close like second to him in those aspects.
Yeah, I think they specifically mentioned bow.
But yes, he's supposed to be really good at
I think in the first book, didn't Rand use the bow for a while?
all of them.
I think he did at the beginning or something.
They've all used the bow.
And then wasn't it Matt in the second book when he shot I forget what the things are called in the other world?
No, that was Rand.
Okay.
That was Rand in the portal world.
Yep, that's supposed to set up like that. That's the specific stuff I'm talking about. It's these like weird little hints of like, oh, you can hit this thing from like what was it like 300, 500 paces away at like
so like
pinpoint accuracy.
Yards.
Yeah,
which
like,
for a bow hunter, that's me. Hi, that is fucking far.
Yeah.
That's really fucking far.
Well, it's like 300, 500 feet, right? If we're going
yards,
like paces.
I thought you said.
It's a yards.
Oh,
because a pace is more of a yard than a foot.
So
it's like 300 paces away, 300 yards. That's a football field. That's 3 football.
No, that's 3 football fields. I'm dumb.
Yes. It's crazy.
It's not like I was watching the NFL all day.
Well, I mean, these are, and it's said with the Two Rivers bows and the Shinar bows. It's not, which I appreciate about Jordan, but it also can be kind of confusing. Which is like, especially if you don't know weaponry, is like those weapons as well. But like, the Shinarans use horse bows, which are short bows used from horseback. Whereas the people of the Two Rivers have long bows.
Yes.
So they're intentionally, and they're supposed to be like really hard. Well, I don't remember the word for bow, Marcus. You probably know what it is, but like the pound pullage on it is supposed to be like really fucking high on the Two River long bows.
The longer your bow is, the more accurate you're actually going to be down range. But obviously, because you have a longer bow, if you're up in a tree or on a horse. I'm a deer hunter. I'm up in a tree. The shorter your bow is, the actual better it is because you're in confound circumstances. So you have branches around you, or you're on a horse. So it's a lot harder.
Yep.
It's harder to pull a long bow than a short bow, if that makes sense. So a long bow is going to be more accurate way down range, but a short bow is going to be more accurate close range.
Yeah, because for a long, like, I think people should understand, and I don't know if you two know this, but a longbow is generally like supposed to be like 6 foot tall or higher.
Yeah, they're like big. They're like big.
They're really big.
Yeah.
Which it just takes more strength. You just have a lot more that you have to move to get there.
It's also just cumbersome.
That more depends on like what's around you of cumbersome. Yeah, like he said, cumbersome, but it's more general to be better. A longbow is better. I'm talking like real world now stuff. A longer bow is better for better accuracy, but obviously if you have a longer fucking bow, you're gonna hit into shit. Or if you're bouncing around, or if there's wind or whatever, it's not as good. If that makes sense. So a shorter bow is better for that.
Yeah. So that's like
Much to drink.
these guys are like, it's supposed to set up like the two rivers are that those scenes are supposed to be like the hints that the two rivers are not what they seem to be. Like
Right.
even if they had festivals, of shooting longbows, right? Like you wouldn't expect that they could hit that at pinpoint accuracy in the eye from 300 yards away. Like that's a pretty difficult shot.
That's hard for modern bows.
Yeah. So that's the big, like, which if you don't know, like, I feel like if the average person wouldn't necessarily have that information, so it'd be like, oh, okay, cool. But
That's
like
insane.
But like because in like normal fantasy, like that happens all the time, right? But
Right, yeah.
in this, real world physics does somewhat apply.
Right. For example, for those people, I wouldn't shoot a deer-sized target, which is way bigger than a fucking eye, at 40 yards away. Let alone, 300 yards away.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't cut yourself short.
No, I did.
He's Taveran.
I'm not Tarvaran.
No, I'm
That
saying
you know
Ryan's
of.
Taveran.
Oh, I was saying I'm not Tarvaran, so I wouldn't shoot it at 300
The
yards.
wheel guided his arrow.
That's true.
I mean, that's not.
Are you
fully
sure
true
that the
on
wheel hasn't guided your arrow ever, Marcus?
Oh my
My
god.
arrow.
Okay, we got a lot to talk about still.
I'm sorry.
So,
I guess
Um,
the only other thing I would just really quickly cut in is the fact, like, I just wish that we got more setup for him being really great at the quarterstaff.
I agree.
I loved it. I loved the interaction. I was smiling ear to ear the whole time because of course he's gonna beat these fucking idiots. But yeah, I just
well,
wish that we had more interaction. With
and
it.
I love how they're set up to basically be like Galad and Gawain are both
Gawain? Yeah.
Gawain are supposed to be are set up to basically be like sword masters in training,
Mhm.
and Matt just like steamrolls them.
He's like, here's a coin on it.
Yeah.
And then the old warder has the story too about how the one like best swordsman in history was also beaten by a farmer with a staff. So
Yeah, which I feel like is gonna come up later.
I
But-
think it's mostly like it's probably like a legend type thing of
Right.
like, hey, you need to not underestimate it. But yeah, it's kind of like that combination of like there's this mythos.
David versus Goliath
Yeah.
type of thing. And I think that's where actually, yeah, because Robert studied all of the old mythology and old like lords and stuff like this. Probably David versus Goliath type of thing.
Yeah. Well, and then we also get the first setup of Matt's luck, which I want to talk about next. How did you guys like his power being explained in this book?
Now, do you? I
Do
know
it,
that
Riker.
there's some criticisms of it. Would you want to hear
Do
a
it, Riker.
positive take on it first?
Whatever you
can-
feel like, Riker,
whatever. If
baby.
you want to talk about the critiques of it, then you talk about critiques of it, and I will come in with the positive side.
I want to
later.
talk about the positive side of things.
Okay.
All right, I'll go back to negative.
I enjoyed it. I made the note on like the question discussion point. It is like I know we haven't gone on a critique yet, but I know one of the critiques will be it is very plot conveniency. It's like, oh, things just magically go right. Seems really convenient. And yeah, it does, but I find that really unique compared to the other two's specialness. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, the wolf thing's cool, and being able to channel as this legendary hero's cool. But just having like just luck in general, it's just so different in this world. I took the whole plot convenience out of it every time it happened.
Well, I have a question too, and I think this is set up in book 2, where the heroes of the Horn come back. No, Kit and Kat. The heroes of the Horn come back, and Hawkwing addresses Matt as the gambler.
Yes.
So,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
so Matt is like this reincarnation of this specific type of power too.
hmm I like that that's implemented into the world.
Hey, show the cat.
Oh. Boop.
Kitten.
Okay, I'll hold off on talking about it. Marcus, Logan, thoughts on the power?
Logan, go.
I mean, I think Breaker pretty much nailed it. Again, it is a thing where it's like we don't get much explanation, but that was kind of what I expected, and that it'll be fleshed
get it
out a
later.
little bit more, yeah, as it goes on. Because I think that's also kind of intentional. Like he wants us to like be confused and be like, man, what's like what how does this work? Like, what's the extent of his capabilities
You
here?
to
Like,
leave stuff open for the reader to be questioning, so that they want to pursue those questions as they read further into the book.
right.
I'd agree.
We do get a critique or like a con of his power, which is that it has to be dealing with chance.
I liked that. I like that he specified that and figured it out. I like that where it's like it's specifically dice, or it's not cards. It's not like you can count stuff, or you can be in correct positions for stones, which is probably the Japanese version of
It's Stones is basically like a
whatever.
strategy game. Yeah, it's like a very intense, like it's like a chess type game.
I viewed it like Go almost.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'm so much in between you guys where like I loved it. I enjoyed it because of Matt's personality, because his personality just shone fucking through finally, and it was amazing to see his personality. But it was also then just constant plot conveniences for his luck.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I'm at with his power yet.
But with that too, I feel like the reason that I land on the side of it being positive is definitely because his personality, and it fits his like style so well.
Right.
But also with the consequence, and I think we get more of those as we move through the story. But the consequence in this book is, what could have been more random than going to this one shop in the middle of a storm right off the boat? And instead, I didn't do that. I was just trying to go around to inns, and he basically misses saving the girls from the Black Aja because he doesn't understand his power. He goes around to all these inns thinking, okay, they've got to be an inn. I'll just hit these inns at random. But because he limits himself to the inns, he doesn't actually use his power correctly, which is why, like, when you think about it, like, Tom's getting sick, and like that's part of, like, basically the pattern is giving him the sign of what he should be doing, but he's ignoring those signs, and that comes to be detrimental to him.
When you say it like that seems way more interesting to me, and I like it. But I also have a hesitance of that just means it's more plot convenience down the road, where he will go into a town, instead of being like, I'm gonna hit the inns, I'm gonna just run into any building I would need, and that's just gonna be the convenient building. But when you say it like that, I hear what you're saying. It's more like you see the limits more because of it.
There's limitations to it, and like, even if and this will be set up more later, but like, his luck is not perfect all the time,
right?
And it can actually be almost detrimental, because they kind of set that up a little bit with the dice, where he like rolls, I think it's in Camelin with Basil Gill and Tom, and he rolls the dice, and I think he rolls 6 crowns or 5 crowns or whatever. And Basil Gill's like, that's either the best toss or the worst toss.
Right. It's either like you want all 1s or 6s type of thing. And it depends on the game you're playing.
Exactly. And so it's a setup. It's a setup of like, Matt needs to make sure he's playing the correct game, or his luck will come back to backfire on him type thing.
Right. I did like that aspect, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. My biggest concern with Matt is obviously, other than the plot convenience of it, of just like, oh well, he just randomly walked into a building, and that was the building he needed to be in because of luck. Is that with his story in this book he left, and we didn't even talk about Camelin. He delivered the letter to the queen and her lover, who is obviously a dark friend, or a bad
one
guy
of
in
the
general.
Forsaken.
We didn't. Did we get that?
Yeah.
Did we know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we know that.
Logan and I look very confused.
It's set up in one of the conversations where Moraine says this person is in Camelin. Or there's like a very, sorry if I spoiled it for you guys, but there's a very brief, like I remember hearing a very brief mention, and it might not have been Moraine, it might have been one of the other Forsaken setting it up, but someone says, it might have been in the scene where Egwene goes into the dream world and she's in where Kalimdor is, and the guy's talking, and he's talking about I think it's Ravine, or someone is in, like, this person's in Ilion, and this person's in Camelin. It is mentioned very briefly. Yeah.
I very, very minutely remember that, but I never made that connection.
And
that makes sense, but I also did not make that connection.
I do believe Bilal is mentioned to be one of the Forsaken when they get listed off.
Yes, yeah. Bilal, we knew, or at least I remember knowing, being a Forsaken.
They're the one he's in Ilion, right?
He's the one in Tyr.
He's in Tyr.
Oh, he's the one in Tyr. Okay, yeah. There's like
he's the one who died in Tyr.
Yeah, right. Because there's a setup.
Whatever.
There's a setup of like there's one in Tyr. There's one in Ilion, and so it's kind of also supposed to be like they're kind of out. Like we know everywhere. Salim's out. And she was in the tower, and they're kind of all over the place. And I know it's set in this book, but it's this one thing that I have a problem with Jordan a little bit is like that clue should have been a lot more heavy-handed than it was. It's very brief. But it's basically and it's set up a little bit with the way Morgaine acts, because we've seen Morgaine act before, and she's very like with her former general who's been randomly dismissed from town, and this new guy has come in and is like inserting all of his own people into the guard, and she's like this lovesick puppy around him. Yeah, and it's like
I'm sorry, I thought you said Moraine.
No,
it is
Morgaze. Yeah.
Okay.
And Morgaze is has always, the way she's been portrayed is similar to Elaine, but more mature and very much this is my kingdom. I'm queen. This is my rule. I do what I want. And even with Tom, we get the characterization of she's hot-headed sometimes, and she's very much I don't need a man to run my kingdom with me. You will fall in line behind me. This is my throne.
Which I totally forgot about with Tom. I want to know so much more about Tom Marilyn's backstory. But I felt like we cut off on Matt's power, and that sequence of events of him talking to the guard, getting rejected, then deciding to crawl over the wall like Rand did, and then infiltrate with the letter was just such a plot convenience, where I know he's trying to show how much Tarverans are can manipulate people around him and chance, but I felt like it would have been better to show he can manipulate guards that don't trust him, instead of just being I need to go back and crawl over a wall.
I think
I just took that as Matt remembered that Rand did it, and Rand told him about it, so he just went to utilize the same thing.
That was one of the things of that I agree. It definitely sets up that it's Tarveran at work, because he conveniently goes over the wall, which causes him to overhear the conversation, which causes him to run into Talanvor, who's a Queen's man, which gets him to Morgaze. And I agree that it I would say at first, in a normal story, I would say that's super plot convenience. But the thing that Ta'Veren does is it sets that up a little bit. So those, that instance of there were some instances in this book that I was that's a little too convenient. That instance I thought was perfect. The perfect way to explain the way the pattern weaves the story.
Mm-hmm.
Which then, for me, would build into the point where, all right, he sees the that guy talking to the assassin, and he goes, I need to run to Tyr ahead of him to save them. And I remember very specifically the whole boat ride. It's like we got to Tyr from Camelin in world record breaking time. This was insane. We
It's
never
so
should have done this
fast.
before. This was the fastest we've ever done it. Oh, the guy made it before us.
Well, he
as well.
did the same thing. He went straight to
Right, but he wasn't on the same boat, and it's like the captain of that boat was like, we shouldn't have done this. This was insanely fast. Why did we go this fast? And he's like, oh, I just was betting him that we could make it beforehand. Like, I don't know.
But we also, I mean, like, he left before they did still. So it's like
only by like a couple hours, though, not like by a whole day or a week.
But yeah, but Matt and Tom don't run into him immediately. I thought it was a couple days, and then they run into him in the inn.
No, it was, if I remember correctly. Sorry, I might need to call.
This is a very specific instance.
Time is very weird in this series as well. But like he heard the conversation, did the whole thing with the Queen, Moraes, gave him the letter, blah, 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 left and said, we need to leave tonight.
Yes.
So literally the assassin was like 4 hours ahead of them. And the captain very specifically said, like, this is the quickest I've ever gotten to Tyr. Ever. Oh, and he's here before us. Like, that was one of the moments where I was just like, wait, what?
I just don't remember. I feel like he didn't run into him like right away. I feel like they checked a lot of inns for the ladies, and like they ended up running into him a little down the line, a couple days after.
It might have been the second day of them being in Tyr, but I remember. I just still feel like I remember the innkeeper being like, oh, he's been here for a while. Like one of these Outlander lords being here for a while, and he has insane luck with the dice. But
see, we would
I
need.
Have to
I was gonna say that's like a very specific section because I'm pretty sure they meet him a few days after, and that like they're talking about him at like an Outland lord, but he's just kind of been at like the inn for a little while, and he's bullying people around, taking their coins and stuff like that. So,
for me, it was a sequence where I like actually had to stop reading, and I went like, wait, what? And like, did I miss something? Like, this is one of the couple of moments in this book where I stopped. Like, I was taken out of the book and the story. I mean, like, well, how was he here before you?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like a really small instance that is like could be technically correct, but then it probably should have been written in a way that made it a little bit more clear.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's an important part of the book anyway.
Logan and Riker aren't jumping in, so maybe I took it to the next level of like I took it too far. I thought
I didn't make that connection myself. No.
Yeah, I don't really remember getting hung up on that.
No, I just got away with it.
No, I remember. Yeah, I guess I remember that very specifically.
I appreciate your thoughts and comments on it, though.
But
it's a level that I did not go to.
This is also me listening to it very quickly as a very first time reader / listener, where I know like both of you have taken a little bit longer to read it or listen to it. So like that was like me like just like, wait, what? I thought they got there so fucking quick, and the evil guy is there first. But I mean, that might be the quicker listening reading / where you guys were taking it a lot slower than what I was.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Okay. Let's get on to the climax because we're already close to an hour and a half in. We're over an hour and a half in. So let's go from the worst part of the thing. Let's talk about the girls. I agree with your comment, Marcus. Why wouldn't they have been searched and the Turan girl taken away? How can like it would have made more sense to me if it would have been set up that she could slip into dreams, and if more of the dream powers would have been like the fact that she is a dreamer, so it would have made more sense if like she had learned over the course of this book how to naturally slip in, and like it was taken away, but she finds a way to go in anyway. I feel like that would have been more interesting.
The introduction of the Tangongriels.
It's Terangriel.
Terangriels. That was just like, oh, okay, their powers are more powerful. It was just
they're
strange to me.
basically like special pieces of the power that do. So there's like the thing that Moraine has that increases her power, and then there's like the other stuff that has like specific uses of the power. So like the ring is specifically for entering the world of oh god, I can't pronounce it.
Elrond.
Yes, thank you. And like they've got like they talk about them in the list that the women took from the tower. One of them like shoots out balefire. A lot of them help get into the world of dreams. Like there's like that's the big setup with that. But I just don't think that, I don't know if you guys agree with this. I feel like the girls part of this was kind of like last time where they didn't do shit.
I think that was my biggest complaint. They didn't do fucking anything.
Nothing.
Which was my biggest problem. I'm fine with them failing. I just want to see them fail or just not have them there then.
Yeah.
Either have them like go into it and be like, oh, we couldn't figure it out with the dream world. Matt, we couldn't I can't remember what they did to like the other
they shielded her so she couldn't use the
Yeah,
power.
they like cut her off.
Oh, sure. Okay. I would have been more fine with them failing that and then Matt showing up and knocking her out and being like, oh, we couldn't do it.
Or instead of, because I feel like in the book it's just like it's very quick, like, oh, and I jumped on her and I shielded her. Instead of making that maybe like an actual fight through the world of dreams between those two.
Yeah.
And then, because like I feel like Matt also kind of just shows up and like breaks him out of like gets the last step to break him out of prison, and that's really all he does in the conclusion.
Hey, he also finally got to use the fireworks.
True.
That's very true. He got to use the fucking goddamn fireworks. Thank fucking God.
Glad they set that up.
I had to listen to that for 10 fucking chapters.
I mean,
Matt still had these fireworks. He didn't know what to do with them. He could sell them. He could do blah blah blah.
I mean, it's important for later.
I mean, I assumed it was. I'm also assuming that fireworks lady that they got them from is gonna come back at some point for something.
Yes.
I mean, in general, I just felt like it was just such like I know they're trying to make the dark ones or the dark friends be like, oh, we're so more powerful, way more smarter, way better than the people who are here trying to fight us, and we don't need to search them. But I felt like this one's very specific. It was like, what? Like, oh, we didn't search them and find the
ring,
the thing that makes it more powerful.
Well, it doesn't make it more powerful. It just allows Egwene to slip into the world of dreams easier. That's all it does. That's all that ring does is let them. It lets anyone who's touching it while they are asleep, gives them the opportunity to enter the world of dreams. So
it was like made them. Then this would be like being not great reading.
Well, they explain that even in the first book. Like Moraine explains it, like they don't actually like enhance their powers. It just allows them to focus it.
No. There's 3 types of Terangrial. I'd have to look up the specific names of them, but one of them is the type that the ring is, which is it has a specific use of the power. So the specific use of the ring is that it can help someone enter the world of dreams. There's a wand that the Black Aja steals that lets them cast balefire. There's a couple other ones that also let them enter the world of dreams. There's the porcupine that lays the trap that traps someone in the world of dreams. That we'll get into with Perrin's story.
Hedgehog.
The hedgehog, whatever. That's one type. There's 2 other types. The 2 other types are, one of them is what Moraine has, which is like the statue of the woman, or I think is what hers is. But it's a type of that allows her to channel more of the one power at once. And then there's a stage above that allows them to channel another, like, is more powerful than the base level ones. And those are like, I think Swan Sanche uses it in Healing Matt. The white wand is
those like the Saw Angriel.
Saw Angriel, yeah. Yeah, that's like the top tier.
Yeah, like Uber.
Yeah, that's like the ones that allow you to channel like ridiculous amounts of the power. And like if you're already powerful and then you get one of those, you can handle even like it goes like exponentially higher.
So like in a sense, it doesn't like enhance their powers, but it does allow them to channel more power.
But like the ring does not do that though. The ring
Right,
only serves the purpose of getting them into the world of dreams. It's and this is like I don't think is well explained up to this point in the series, but as we get into the books later on, you'll see each variation be used and talked about. So, and there's ones that men can use and there's one that women can use. So they're split up that way too. Okay. So yeah, the girl story is boring, and that ties in Matt, which I unfortunately think makes Matt's conclusion boring as well. But
Yeah, he like fucking shows up and he's like, "I've saved you guys," and they're like,
Really rude and mean to him. Yeah, they're like, "Oh, you saved us, did you, fuckface? Did you?"
Yeah, fuckface. You see that person was unconscious?
Yeah,
Matt was in
but
this book to carry the like 50 to 75% way, you know.
I mean, Matt basically just showed up and let them out of the cage. Like, they actually did do some of the hard work of beating her. Because, like, if Matt showed up and she was, like, still awake and conscious and had, like, her power,
he probably would have been done for.
He would have been screwed.
What are you talking about? He's got his luck. She would have misfired.
I don't think it extends
the wall
that
behind
far.
her.
That
we don't know.
Doesn't extend that far, I can tell you.
Are you sure? Because that's what it seems like so far.
I mean, I think it helps in regular fights, but when it comes to stuff like that,
Hey, he does crack that one High Lord on the head accidentally. That was apparently about to like stab him or something.
Oh, that was like right behind him.
That was like very convenient.
Well, his luck, his luck goes up and down and stuff like that too. So anyway, let's talk about Perrin and Fael, and Perrin's like conclusion of this book.
All right. I think Logan has a lot of feelings about this. So Logan, how about you go?
I do.
I don't think Riker has anything to say about it.
No, I do.
What do you got? What do you got, Riker?
Can I say that even though he was warned and it seems something's really fucked up, I just hate it. I hate it so much. It just seems so forced to me.
Wait, what part?
The part where where she collapses and Moraine specifically says, "Hey, don't go near her." And he's like,
the trap. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, "Nah, fam, I'm gonna do it." Like,
no,
which you don't really. At least I didn't feel coming up to that point like that was justified, that their relationship had come that far. You know what I mean?
I can agree with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm gonna throw myself at her.
I'm gonna throw myself into harm's way to save this woman
who I thought was ugly to begin with, and now I'm thinking that
and have had
Nick
a
told me to
contentious
avoid.
relationship at best with so far.
I don't think he thinks she's ugly. I think she just looks different.
It's true.
I think it's more he's trying to separate himself from her because he doesn't want her to like be part of this prophecy that Min has laid out for him.
Yeah, that's part of it.
It was very weird where he was like, "Oh, she looks like a falcon with a nose or like a beak to me," and then he was like, the next chapter is like, "Wait, is this who Min told me to avoid because she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my entire fucking life?"
Well,
it was a strange juxtaposition.
He didn't say it was probably I feel like it was a poor descriptor more than anything. But he didn't say she's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. He said she's Min told me to stay away from pretty girls, and she's a pretty girl. Is this the one that she was warning me about? Which
I thought she did say the most beautiful woman you've ever seen, though. If I remember right, she said the most beautiful woman you've ever seen in your life.
We know who that is, right?
Yeah, right. That's more for the reader than for the
character.
Yeah,
I understand that.
Yeah, I think the relationship could have been set up a little bit more, but like there is this like hesitant from Perrin to like, I don't want to follow this prophecy because I don't want someone telling me what to do. But there's also like I want to keep her out of this because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
And we didn't really we'll talk about this with Perrin, but we didn't really talk about the fleeing from the Dark Hounds and running from is Bilal the one who? No, Bilal's not the one.
Bilal Yes, Bilal sends the Dark Hounds after them.
No. That's a different one.
Yeah, it was a different one that sent the hounds after
Yeah,
them.
that was Samael.
Yeah,
It was Samael.
It's
Yes.
Oh,
an
really?
Ilion. Ilion, yeah.
Yes.
My notes are shit.
Yeah. Samael sends the Dark Hounds after them when they land in Ilion because Moraine and Lan are like, things are weird here. We're gonna go check some stuff out because I think they get. Oh, it's after they got attacked by the Gray Man in the bar, and
Right,
they're like,
yeah.
what the fuck is going on? We're gonna go check some stuff out, and then they go and find out. They're like, we need to get the fuck out of here because Samael is in charge of Ilion now, and we need to run.
That's what it was. I remember very specifically being like, oh, they figured out there was a
Forsaken.
not a Forsaken here, but then there's a Forsaken there in the next couple chapters. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's basically
Okay,
like this
that makes
very
more
like
sense.
very much like here's a hint. Here's a
Yeah,
lot of
here's a
hints.
hint.
They're everywhere now.
Right. What do you
Um,
guys think of the Dark Hounds? Not to interrupt you, Gavin.
No, you're
but
good.
What do you guys think? What do you two think of the Dark Hounds at this point in the book?
Interesting new addition. Punked out like bitches though.
I think that's my biggest problem with them. They were introduced to be like these super crazy badass enemies that are like can put footprints in cement
They
or
put
stone.
They don't leave footprints on dirt, but they leave tracks in stone. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh my god, these are so fucking scary. Oh, well, Moraine just uses a balefire,
Just boom, gone.
and it's a Forsaken juju fucking spell.
It's banned
Hail?
knowledge, and there's a reason it's banned knowledge, but we
Right.
don't know that yet. Because right now it seems super powerful. It's like, why wouldn't you be using balefire
Yeah,
all the
why
time?
is this not a thing that gets used all
you
the
just
time?
instantly incinerate whatever you're doing.
Right,
And
it's like
also,
Perrin's like so good at the bow. He killed the one. Nice. Oh, Moraine killed the rest.
I mean, I think
Yeah,
it's
I was
supposed. Go ahead, Logan.
I was gonna say like the Bellfire. I don't. We just get like. I feel like I get like a mix of representations of it too, because it seems like, and this was a complaint I had rolling into Baylal at the end of the book. Like Moraine specifically talked about how like the Forsaken, if they like knew that they were coming, like they were screwed. Like even Moraine would be screwed. And then like she just like boom, she shoots some Balefire and he's dead. Like that seemed a little like I don't know that wrapped up a little too conveniently for me. I mean, I understand Balefire is supposed to be insanely powerful, but I feel like with the knowledge that we have up to this point, that felt a little lacking to me in how that played out.
Yeah, it was supposed
Like,
to be.
'cause they-
Go ahead. Sorry.
They just made it sound like Baylor was gonna be he was just gonna put up more of a fight than he really did, and obviously then we have like Balzamon's there too, and that goes that way. But yeah, I just felt like Baylor kind of didn't really serve a whole lot of a purpose.
No, he was just there to be like an obstacle that's in tier, I feel like, more than anything. And I agree that I feel like we should have got more fight with Rand. Like I barely remember the fight sequence of this book, honestly.
It does not last.
It's
very,
very
long.
short.
Yeah, it's honestly not even much of a fight. It's more
It's
of
like a
him
chase.
just
It's more of a
chasing
chase
down.
sequence.
Yeah. Well,
With
because
Moraine coming in at the end and ending it.
yeah, because Moraine just pops in and is like, and he doesn't know I'm gonna be here. Balefire.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Yeah.
Instant ash. Forsaken dead.
I mean, there is no Ash left behind after Balefire. He's just
You know
gone.
what I mean? He's just vaporized.
You'll
He's
find
gone.
out.
Poof.
I did think the image like when Balsamon shoots Balefire at Rand and he cuts the beam with Kalendor and like then it talks about how it just like shears through and like Kalendor's like shearing through the stones and stuff. Like I thought all that stuff was really cool. Like I feel like as far as the descriptions of what was going on in Rand's section, that finally was a lot more interesting than how like I feel like some of the fight stuff up to this point across all three books sometimes it was lacking. I
The
felt like
power
that was
description
a solid
of Kalendor is so cool.
yeah, that was like a solid like sequence of action. I feel like he did well with.
Agreed. I think this is. I mean, a lot of this is like set up for the future, which I know I say a lot, but I think that this fight is bad, and I'm going to talk about my concluding point now, which is like this fight isn't super not like its description is good, but it's very short, and I think it needed to be like this conclusion needed to be actually like extended upon more. It was just like we get like 2 sequences with Perrin in the dream, and I think like that's because he felt like they were boring, and they kind of were boring. So like those I feel like need to be more interesting. And then like I feel like we could have gotten more from Bilal at the end. And maybe
he was
something
introduced in the same book as well.
Yeah.
It's like
and,
he's introduced, he's defeated.
And then maybe something from like the girls and Matt as well, because they just like don't do anything. And it's like you could have like had them fighting the Black Aja, and yeah, maybe they still escape, but like there could have been like and maybe part of it, I don't know, maybe he did write these things out, and the publishing company was just like, yeah, no, we're cutting that. Like, you need to cut this down because we don't want to make this book that long.
Right. I was also thinking like the second book was so popular probably that like we need to copy paste the same from the second book.
Potentially.
Bring everyone together and then fight the bad guy.
Well, and I don't know if you guys felt like this, but I felt like this could have easily been the conclusion to the series. Like, there's a lot of unanswered questions, but this could have like books 1, 2, and 3 have felt like if the series ended here, it's fine. It's a conclusion.
Yeah.
And
I felt about the second book for sure. Third book.
I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that originally
it's gonna be 6 books.
Robert Jordan.
6.
Yeah, okay.
It's supposed to be 6 books originally, and then the publishing company was like, "Can you make this longer?" And so he made it long. He extended it by another 6 books, which
so
I think
assuming,
was a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know at what point what he had written that decision was made, but assuming that this was being written and he was still under the assumption it was going to be a 6-book series, maybe that could also be an explanation for why some things got sped up. I don't know.
I agree with the sped up. I mean, but it could have also been the assumption of like, this might be it. This might be all I get, because like there's been plenty of times where that's happened. I mean, I feel like we saw that a lot in like TV shows in our childhood and stuff like that. Things would just get canceled and be done because they didn't sell enough copies. And that would be the same. That's the same with books. Like people would just, oh, you published, before we had self-publishing and stuff like that, where people could finish out the series in like this very pop culture of like, you need to finish out what you start. I feel like, it's very easily like, this could have just been like, okay, you only get, oh, your 3rd book didn't do very well, we're not renewing you for a 4th book. Sorry, we're not publishing it.
Which might be why the reason for me the 3rd book is so much lower than the 1st and 2nd. I feel like the 1st and 2nd are Robert Jordan. That's like what he wanted to write. The 3rd book, at the end especially, feels like it's just for fans. It's like just a fanfare of like I can't even like do it, but it's like, oh, he grabs a sword that's not a sword but also makes him more powerful. He just like he can teleport to where Baalzamon is and just kill Baalzamon in a second. Oh, Balefire is like a spell that is banned. It shouldn't be used at all. Oh, Moraine uses it twice and just kills everything that's bad. It's just like, it just felt like this is the new bad. Oh my god. Oh, well, there's this. Cool.
I disagree.
I don't know.
I do think that there was definitely some. I felt like this was the book where there was a little bit. I could see a little bit of the hands involved behind the scenes, like pushing it in a certain direction. But I also feel like this is the book where we get characters, finally, like full fleshed out characters. And this is the book for me where the series truly begins. Like the end of this book is when I feel like the Wheel of Time actually starts.
I would say the character development of Matt and Perrin, because I love Perrin, I love Matt now. They don't transcend the rest of the book for me.
Agreed.
If that makes sense. like, great. We get tons of Matt. Matt is fantastic. He's great at the end of the book. I love Matt. If Matt died in the fourth book, I wouldn't care. If Perrin died in the fourth book, I wouldn't care. There's just so much other stuff that happens that's randomly happened to advance the plot that makes me more just like, what's going on? I don't know. I don't understand anything, and it's just like circumstance, especially with the girls. So
What do the other two think?
I disagree with you.
with who?
With you, Marcus.
All right, fuck you.
I would definitely care if they died. I think you're just a little more hung up on the whole like Taverin, like things happening for them just because. Then I think at least I am. I think
That's probably fair.
I'm not saying good, not saying bad. I think that's just like our two takes on the series so far.
I agree with that because
very fair.
I think the reason that I don't mind it as much, like, yeah, there are definitely there's a reason he wrote this into the story. It's a giant plot hole filler. But there are definitely times in these first three books where it's used in a way that I feel is poor. But there are times when I think it's used very effectively, and so I forgive some of the poor elements to it. And the fact that this book specifically does a good job of making these characters instead of flat pieces of board that are following Rand around doing stuff, and they're like all basically carbon copies of each other, is interesting to me. Riker, you want to jump in and say anything?
Yeah. I've talked with Marcus about the Taverin thing, and I think we all have.
I message you guys as I read through it.
And that's fine. I actually appreciate you doing that. I really like to get your perspective on it as you're going through and get your live reactions. I'm not going to say I totally agree. I like just generally everything about it almost. I know it's very plot conveniency, but I definitely like looking past that, and I think that combined with just as we've said with the previous books, like all the characters seem kind of flat, to say the least. Robert Jordan decided to turn it up to 11 in this book and combine it with his world building and storytelling, and I think this book was great. Now, do I like it better than the second one? No, not really. But
Well, while we're on
just
that,
personal preference thing.
let's talk about what are your book orders, Riker? In what order would you rank the books so far?
I think we should do this at the end of every video.
That's what I want to do.
For
Now
sure.
that we have 3 books in, I want to start doing this every single time. So, Riker, what is your ranking order?
My ranking order so far is 2, 3, and 1.
Okay. Logan?
1 is definitively at the bottom for me, but honestly, I'm on the fence between 2 and 3. I feel like depending on the day, I could go either or. Honestly.
Okay. And then Marcus.
I honestly really struggled with this. I thought book 3's like highlights, Matt's fight, Matt's character development is like just better than anything I've read so far. But it doesn't overarch the rest of the problems I have with the book. So for me, it's 2, 1, 3.
Okay.
Just because 3 copies 2.
Okay. I mean, that's totally valid.
That's it. That's
I
the only
definitely think mine is 3. Probably, this is tough. 3, I'd almost put 1 and 2 comparable for me.
They're both very close for me as well.
I personally think that I like 1 better. Like, the ending of 1 is really bad, and the ending of 2 is really good. But I like the journey of 1 more than I like the journey of 2. So, like,
I would agree with you.
think 3 is my favorite because this is where I feel like characters actually start to take on life, and I'm interested. Like, I don't think Rand is in my top 5 favorite characters of the series. Like, I like Rand, but I like the other characters a lot more, and this is the first time we get to see the life brought to those characters a little bit. So 3, and then I probably would say 1 and then 2. But those
I
two
think
are
after
close.
after thinking about it more, I think I would go 3-2-1 personally, and
One.
favorite to least favorite. But yeah, and I think that's just because same thing as you said. Like, I think the first and the second book overall we're there for the journey, and in 3 we begin to also be there for the characters.
Yeah.
So like now moving forward, I'm still interested in the journey, but now I'm also interested in what's going to happen with the characters. Like whereas like I feel like in 1 and 2 I still didn't really give enough of a shit about the main group from Two Rivers, that I was really just there to see how it played out in the long run.
Yeah.
Fair.
So let's do favorite characters up to this point as well.
I wanted to do a
Starting-
tier arc. I wanted to do a tier arc.
We'll do. I want to
but I
do.
totally forgot to make
I
it.
want to do a character breakdown. Marcus has brought this up, and we'll
Tier
do this
list?
at some point. A character like tier list of with all 4 of us. But I really want to save it until after we're done with the entirety of the series to see where your guys where they end up. So, but right now, this with all 3 books in, Marcus, who is your favorite character so far?
Oh god, this is this is so hard because the third book I was never bored with Matt. Any chapter with Matt I was into, I loved it. But because of the other 2 books, I have to rank him lower
What about Tom?
on an average. Tom was fucking fantastic in the first 5 chapters of book 1. So I rank them equally. And I'm talking about not Tom Maryland. I'm talking about Tom Rand's father.
Oh, Tam Althor.
Hey,
Tam. Sorry, Tam. Tom. He's he's A tier.
Okay. Well,
I'm
give
talking
me your favorite. Who is your
S.
S tier, your number 1 pick? If you had to read a story focused on one character alone at this point, who would it be?
It'd be Matt, then Loyal.
Okay. Logan?
But only because this book was very fantastic for Matt. Before that, Loyal.
I think I'd have to say probably Nynaeve. No, I'm just kidding.
You piece
I'm like,
of
you take
shit.
that back.
You are such a son of a bitch. I don't even like that joke.
Honestly, I feel like I might pick Lan.
Lan's also up there.
I really like Lan as a character, and we still don't even really know a whole lot about him.
Yeah.
But I think he's awesome.
Riker?
You guys picked my 2.
You're also like halfway through book 4, right?
No, I think he just
chapter-
started.
Chapter
No.
13, I think.
Oh, so he's not too
Early
far
on,
in.
yeah.
No, I'm not super far in, so I do have that kind of coloring my perspective.
Well, you think on that, I would clarify for mine too. Again, I think it's a thing. It's like depending on the day, mine could change because Tom Maryland is also up there. I think he's a really interesting character that I'm really want to
You
know
want
more
to know
about.
more about so bad.
I want to know
Yeah.
more about him, but I'm also like, why wouldn't he just join Rand in book 2? He was very against joining it, and then like Matt was there, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll join Matt.
I mean, he was also drunk and depressed when he joined
That's
that, so
True. You'd
I
have
think
to
Tom
be
is
to join
A
Matt
tier.
at that point.
Matt is Tom is A tier for me.
So Riker, who do you want? You can repeat if you really want to.
Also love the Amerlin seat. Amerlin seat is
Yeah.
Swan Sanche.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
she's
Even
A
if-
tier.
You know, I will say at least in this book, only because she continues to be a boss bitch in this book. Siwan Sanchi, yes.
Yeah.
Probably my
feel like
favorite
she-
character.
She has such a unique voice / like what she says,
Mhm.
like with her fishing terminology, that
Yeah.
she just stands out so much more, and it's fantastic. And I love
Yes.
that.
Yeah, you
She's
can
like
clearly
a better Dumbledore to me.
He
Yes.
clearly thought about her before he wrote her and the culture of Tyr. Okay, let's do one. I can't really speak on my favorite character because mine's colored by the entirety of the series. I do know who it is, but I'm not gonna say it because I want you guys to keep experiencing.
Kaladin.
Yeah, Kaladin. Yeah, Stormlight Archives, Kaladin.
Is
The
there
most
is
of-
there a character you could say is your favorite if you could like limit it to the first 3 books?
Right.
Or is that
'Cause
too
that's
hard?
where we're at. That's like for
the
you. I'm
thing-
sure that's so hard for you.
Exactly,
at this point.
because the thing is like I know the journey for a lot of these characters, and like I don't want to say because one of the journeys is like my favorite, and I don't want to spoil it, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, I mean that makes
That's
sense
fair.
because
Yeah, that's
like
fair.
there's probably aspects of what we've read so far that don't mean anything yet that will mean more later.
Yeah.
So,
But there's some things spicing up. So, okay. Do we have any predictions? Does anyone have any predictions moving in?
I'm very
put
interested finally with having someone else have predictions other than me.
Yeah,
I'm
because
looking at
I would
Logan.
Because now
allow,
that we're at this point,
I would
yeah.
allow all three of you to try to make like one prediction,
One?
just one.
Give me a minute.
No, I had
Now, when
some
you say-
predictions.
when you say prediction, are you talking like next book or like
Anything,
general.
anything in general,
Yeah,
anything you want to
anything general.
predict.
one
moving
thing
forward.
I have kind of expected is going to happen at some point? I do feel like Rand is going to be sacrificed at some point.
If that happens, it's going to be in the last book.
Blood on the
I've
Rocks of
thought about it
Sheriff.
very specifically. And if that happens, because I think it could happen, it's in the last book.
It's very. I mean, it would make sense because
Right. It's
that's,
him like
you
killing
know,
himself to kill the dark one type of thing.
Riker, you got one. I feel like you got one right there.
I feel like you do too.
No, it's more of a reaction of where I am in book 4 as to what they're talking about. Prediction. Okay, yes, I do have one. I feel, given how, with specifically Rand and Perrin, we kind of know how their powers work and like what it's almost like connected to in a way in regards to the world. I think there's something, if not a little sinister with Matt, something definitely much more in depth with his background. Maybe dark, maybe not. It feels weird that we've gotten so little on it so far.
Well, there's also a lot of people have mentioned throughout this book, you've got the Dark One's luck.
Yes, people
Right.
have said that. So I'm wondering if it's a little bit more sinister than what we've come to believe.
Marcus?
That's my prediction.
At first, I thought that Matt was going to be Hawkwing Arthur.
Archer Hawkwing Reborn.
Archer Hawkwing Reborn. But the more like we discuss it and go through it, I don't think he is at that level. But especially because when Archer Hawkwing said you are the gambler.
Well, yeah, you should know because Archer Hawkwing is
Specifically-
summoned by the horn, which means
Right.
that he is not currently in the world of the living.
Which, I mean, I think at this point it could be fine to be like, oh, you're the reanimation of him, you can summon him type of thing. But I think he's definitely a Matt was one of like the generals or very high in Arthur Hawkwing's armies. And he's reborn as that because I think he's gonna be very good at commanding people what to do. He obviously blew the horn and was able to summon the armies and like command them. So I think he's going to be in that aspect. But again, like at this point, it's like this could have been the end of the series, so it's hard to
predict what's going to happen.
I think the white cloaks are going to be more
Prevalent?
coherent in the list. Yeah, they're going to be more prevalent in the rest of the fucking series. Like,
Yeah, I mean they were pretty irrelevant this book for the most
Like the
part.
past 2 books, it's been
yeah, no, it's been
White Cloaks who?
I mean they were more important in the second book though.
A little,
They-
yeah.
I mean not like super critical, but
No.
they were more important.
I will give you that. Yeah, they are more apparent in the second book than they are here, but still nothing compared to the first book.
Yeah.
Right. Which, okay, I know, Gavin, you were trying to like kind of end it on that note, but I do want to ask the other two at this point of, do you guys at this point in the books feel any stakes in the world
Ooh.
versus like or like any stakes in the series. Like I said before, if Perrin died, I wouldn't feel too like much pain. I wouldn't feel too much pain if Matt died. I wouldn't feel too much pain if Rand died. And this kind of goes directly into the other story or other question of what do you guys think of the aspect of the world lore of them being Targaryen? Because to me, let me maybe like kind of hash it out before you guys answer. To me, at this point, Targaryen feels like they're invincible, and whatever they do, it doesn't matter. They're not going to die. Whatever they try to attempt to do, it's going to turn out well. Or in general, of that aspect of this, like they're not going to die. They're not going to fuck too many things up. A lot of people are going to follow them. So to me, I don't have many stakes in this series yet because they're Targaryen. If that makes sense.
I think that
it's interesting.
I mean, I think the stakes are still there, but I also at the same time like I don't truly feel concerned for their safety at the moment. I mean, I don't think I'm gonna get all the way to like the final book, assuming that they all make it that far, and be like, oh, like maybe this could be it. Maybe they could die. Maybe some people die here. Like I could see some characters being killed before that. At least at the moment, though, for a lot of the main party, I would say I haven't been super concerned that they were going to be killed.
Right. I mean, at this point, I get before Riker answers. Sorry. Have you felt like very emotional, like, oh shit, something has happened, or like, oh no, like blah 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 has gone transpired in the books yet? Riker.
Me?
Yes.
As far as that question, the only time I ever did was Inktar because I really liked him.
That's true. Yeah, Inktar was kind of cool.
Yeah. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of stakes yet. I'm not saying I need characters to die, but I definitely would like to see more consequences. Like huge, maybe not huge, but like stuff that's going to impact them and rebound through the rest of the story. We haven't really gotten a whole lot of that. Each of these stories have been pretty self-contained for the most part, which is on purpose because he didn't know when the story was going to end.
Yeah.
To that end, I would also say the consequences that have been there, like everything's been short-lived. I mean, look, they got collared by the Shan Chan. Look how fast that got resolved. They got taken like they were captured by the Black Aja. Like, look how fast that got like. There hasn't been like long-reaching consequences for the most part that we felt yet. I don't think for a lot of the big stuff that's happened. Maybe they come back later. Maybe there's some long-lasting effects, but
yeah,
I don't feel it right now.
We do have the long-lasting effect on Egwene with the I will not be collared again.
Yeah, that has definitely changed her character.
Which I appreciated.
It's helped her stand up to Nynaeve a little, which there was some tension in this book regarding that.
Which I really, really loved actually that about Egwene of like, I will not be collared. We get to see the consequence of what happened to her. I just wish in book 2 we got to see more of it and why she is like this instead of a 3-week gap of she got collared versus she's depressed type of thing. But like for me, the stakes of the book right now are so low. And the only reason I would want to bring this up is that we are 2,137 pages into this book series. And in equivalence to other book series, if we looked at Game of Thrones, spoilers, sorry, people who haven't seen the show or read the books, Ned has died already. And we've already had the Red Wedding, which to me is way more equivalent to anything that has happened in this series yet. So we can even go to Harry Potter and be like, oh, Sirius has died and we're in book 5. of Harry Potter.
So I want to talk to this a little bit because I think what you're comparing is stakes to character deaths.
It might be.
And I think that is a misrepresentation of what stakes are. I agree with you. I think the stakes for the story are low. These long-lasting consequences are very low at this point. The thing that's carrying this series up to this point in the series is the world building. And I would say at this stage, the characters now. Those are starting to carry the book a little bit, and but we don't have those consequences that you're looking for. But character death and consequences are different. With Game of Thrones specifically, character death is used in a way to further the plot development of the story, and that's kind of the way that it's supposed to be told. It's a completely different aspect, whereas this is more that's more historical fantasy, where and it's based on a real life, the War of the Roses. It's based off a real life war, and then you've got Wheel of Time, which is a traditional high fantasy, which is significantly different when you're comparing that. And I agree with you get the serious character that dies in Harry Potter. Granted, Harry Potter is YA, so it's a little bit different.
Right. I don't want to compare it to fucking Harry Potter because Harry Potter's not fantastic, but you're in book 5 and you're like, holy shit.
But to be fair, with that, with serious deaths in Harry Potter, it's a very high trope of the mentor character dying. So that'd be if Moraine were to die or Lan were to die or something like that, which is it's the same thing in Lord of the Rings, right? Gandalf dies in, spoiler alert for people who haven't watched Lord of the Rings,
in the past 40 years.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Gandalf dies in book 1, but he does come back, right? But it's the death of the mentor that spurs the character forward, and with Harry, that's a whole different aspect in the world.
Right. And I would even compare this to let's say Stormlight Archive, because this is Brandon Sanderson ends the last 3.
Yes.
We would at this point be starting book 3 without spoiling it for Riker, because Riker hasn't read past book 1. Can you guys remember what ends in book 2?
Yes, I know.
Or even in book 1.
No,
you guys remember
no.
How much more
I'm not saying you're wrong. I agree with you. But what I'm saying is that you gotta also take into perspective of not this is Robert Jordan's first series. This is a better comparison to if we were comparing it to Elantris of Sanderson, Elantris, and then Warbreaker and even Mistborn, right? Stormlight is Sanderson's one of Sanderson's probably keystone pieces, whereas
it's his baby.
Yeah, it's what he spent. He's gotten what, Logan, what would you say, 12 plus novels published by the point he started Stormlight?
Yeah, not including all the novellas and stuff.
Yeah,
too.
so
Award-winning.
So he's gotten a lot of experience and criticism obviously off those books that he's listened to, which I think Jordan also listens to, as we've seen the growth of the writing. But it'd basically be if Sanderson took Elantris and tried to carry it for 14 books and didn't start new series to outweigh the growth that he needed to do as a writer. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's definitely something that's a problem, but also to take into consideration that this is very early on, and comparing it to Stormlight is
right. It's hard. It's hard too. I was just going book page count.
Yes,
but yes, it's at this point I'm gonna go read book 4 to read more of the world.
Yeah,
I don't care if any of the characters die. I can start with a whole new set of characters at this point. And I just want to be in the world and learn more about the world.
The world is fantastic and interesting and stuff like that, and that's what carries it in the beginning. I think that, and this is kind of why I talked about it a lot with you prior. We talked about this a little outside of review last time, which with this not being a book series, I generally recommend right away to people. This is more of a later fantasy series that I usually recommend because it is so long. it is a lot to try to get into it because I do feel like the beginning of the series is not the best. I think the series overall is an S tier, but the series at the beginning is definitely not an S tier series. And I think one thing that I personally have a huge problem with is like the internet overhypes literally everything.
Everything.
Like
Yeah.
like there's been book series that I've read that I've been like, I don't see what you're talking about at all. But like it also puts this like, and with everyone getting hyped for the Game of Thrones Wheel of Time show that's coming out, I feel like it's even more in the spotlight, and I feel like people are gonna watch the show and then go read the books and be like, how did they get this from that?
Right.
But like it's a weird perspective thing. There's a lot of like breaking down we could do of like perspective and thinking about it like that, but I
Right.
also
When
do
these
that.
when this book series came out, this was like cream of the crop, like chef's kiss. All this stuff is completely new, dream world stuff. But like now at this point, it's like a little more redone.
Well,
It's just not
because as like a writing community and stuff like that, and as a writer myself, like everything that's published prior to you can influence your writing moving forward. And
Yeah.
since fantasy, if we think about it, really is a young genre. Like fantasy really has only been a thing since The Hobbit. Like before that it was fairy tales, and which were kids stories. They weren't adult stories, and Tolkien was the one who started kind of turning that train. Because if I go back and I read Lord of the Rings, I don't like Lord of the Rings that much as a book series. I don't think it's I think there's a lot of parts of it that's very boring, but that's because when you're looking at it in perspective, the writing style significantly shifted over the last 80 plus years.
Yeah.
I do think your point's valid though. There are no stakes at this point, and it is a problem of like going back and reading something that's a little bit older or watching something that's a little bit older and being like, wow, this is everyone's favorite.
Right.
And nostalgia filter and stuff like that as well.
Did
Roasted
Logan, did you
glasses.
answer that? Did you answer like do you like the Targaryen stuff of like they just manipulate chance and they're just
I mean, I do like that. Yeah. Overall, I obviously there are low points and there are high points. So even so far with just 3 books, but I think overall so far Robert Jordan has used that as a writing technique to explain away some things that in any other story would seem very convenient, and that gives it enough of like an explanation to me that I'm like, okay, like I can go with this. Like I think it's done well enough so far. Maybe presumably it gets even better, I mean, I would think he would get even better as he keeps writing. So
I mean, I assume so as well. But do you ever feel like that these characters are in danger?
yeah, I'd say so. I mean, like I said, I haven't really felt like, I mean, using death as like the ultimate danger. Like I haven't felt concerned that they were going to die yet, but I have definitely felt like, well, like look at book 2 when they were captured. Like I was very concerned that they were going to be stuck, like chained by the Shan Chan for like an extended period of time. Not necessarily because I was at that point caring about them that much to care about their well-being, but more because I didn't want to read them doing that. But that's besides the point.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, I see. I see what you're saying. Okay.
I agree with Logan. It's a way the Taviran is used as a plot tool to fill in plot holes, obviously, and to explain the traditional fantasy elements of the Chosen One,
Right.
in a new way that's not been done prior to this. It's basically a way of like, you're the Chosen One, but there's a reason you're the Chosen One.
I will say though, I feel like he's done such a way better job of being the quote unquote chosen one, and like stuff happening around him. Like we got in that first village where Perrin went to go visit, all the women got married. like right after he was there or
Like,
when he was
world
there.
consequences
Yeah.
of their
Yeah.
presence.
So
That was kind of like what I was.
I thought that was
referring
actually
to.
really
At least
cool.
that section I liked. I
Yeah.
really liked that happened because I thought that was
Or
probably one of like the first really big moments where we're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, this is how much they can affect the
It's like-
people around them.
It's like
Just him
that shit
being
actually
there.
carries some weight.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
and then there's like the example at the end where a girl falls off like 100-foot drop and gets up fine, and then like a man like trips or something like that and instantly dies. And it's like, it's not like this power is good or evil, and there's like clearly going to be consequences for the entirety of the world because of them running around and doing this. And I think that might be more of where the stakes kind of come in or start to come in a little bit, is like that threat that they carry to the world around them.
yeah, I do feel like he's going to explore that more.
Yeah.
If I want to make that a prediction for the next book, he's going to explore that more for the next book of wherever Rand shows up. It's insane shit is going to happen. But it's obviously strange, I guess.
Yeah.
So you just have to follow it with like a grain of salt or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. You had to
Suspend
take
your
it.
disbelief a little.
Yeah, you had
Yeah.
to you had to take it as suspension of disbelief, and I think that's what a lot of fantasy, you kind of had to do for a lot of fantasy. So
And
It-
one last thing I was going to say before
Okay.
we ended real quick too, as far as like prediction stuff goes, I do get a strong feeling that Moraine is going to die at some point, and I think
Yes.
it's going to serve as either specifically with the girls and like their
Mhm.
training and becoming Aes Sedai. I think it's either going Moraine's death would serve as either a tool of like that is them kind of finally ascending and fully realizing becoming an Aes Sedai, or it's at a point where they don't feel ready to become Aes Sedai and like Moraine could die, and that could be like the final kick that's like it's on
They
us
have
now.
to. Like,
You know.
fuck you have to. It has to happen. Yeah.
I kind of feel like that could come at some point.
I also. Oh, fuck! I had a thought and I can't remember it now. Oh, Nynaeve. Nynaeve's whole existence to become an Aes Sedai is to come back at Moraine and to like, hey, fuck you for coming to our village. It is a week.
No one said character motivations were good in this book.
Yeah, no one
We
said
never
that.
said that.
well, yeah, we've talked. I think we've shit talked the girls enough. We already
know.
agree that they're
I
all
know.
bad.
That's one of the biggest things.
That-
But I do agree with you, Logan. I do feel like Moraine is going to die at some point in this series, and that's going to really push the girls forward. And I think the Aes Sedai is obviously going to die for Egwene to become the new.
So you want
Amyrlin
You think the
Sean
Amyrlin
Chan.
will die? And
the Amyrlin,
for-
yes. So that Egwene will become the new Amyrlin. This is also based off the trailer that we got for the show, and
Spoilers.
also her visions.
Her visions and the acceptance trials. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
could totally
yeah.
be a red herring. We don't know.
But which also doesn't make sense because isn't Nynaeve like supposed to be like the most?
Nynaeve,
Powerful?
Only when
Nynaeve,
she's mad.
Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine are all super powerful compared to the
Yeah,
rest of the Aes Sedai.
They're the
But
strongest.
yes, Nynaeve is supposed-
potential Aes Sedai in years.
Nynaeve is the strongest.
How
but that does.
fucking convenient.
But being the strongest doesn't necessarily make you a good leader.
right, yeah.
So, does anyone have any final thoughts? Because that's what I was going to say before we ended it the last time. Is I was going to ask
Sorry.
anyway for final thoughts, regardless. So you were fine. I was going to ask if you had anything else to say. Does anyone have anything else to add in before we end?
Riker, start us off.
As we said a little bit earlier, this series is a little hard to get into, but I keep finding myself going, I need to know what happens next. I've gotten to that point.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm with you. I'm gonna read all the books at this point.
Yes, I'm so
As much
committed
as
to
I
finishing
shit
this
on the
series.
books, I'm gonna read all of them.
Marcus, your opinion is like you're being critical of the books not because you don't like the books, but because you want them to
Stuff
be
was better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you want them to be at an elevated level, and like that's kind of what I always talk about on this channel is that even
I
if
want
I'm
to be at 11 out of 10.
even if I'm critical of something, does not mean that I did not enjoy the ride.
Yes.
In fact, I try to be critical of things that I do enjoy a lot as well. So, I think that is the perfect note to end on. We will be back with the 4th book, which is Shadow Rising. Is that
Shadow Rising.
Which is apparently the best book of all time ever.
It's good so far.
We'll see if we agree on that one. But that's gonna be it for us. Marcus has already said it. Like, subscribe, comment down below if you want to discuss. We'll see everyone next time.
Talk shit about this book.